Chapter 2340. The cauldron is here, the people are here. Yi Fei's gaze suddenly turned cold. Just as the Lord of Heaven was trying to avoid the sword cauldron, he suddenly spat out a word. Kill. The Taiji sword cauldron suddenly exploded. Endless sword qi gushed out from the sword cauldron like a raging wave, a waterfall, and a river. The Lord of Heaven of family Wang who was near the sword cauldron all screamed as their bodies were pierced by countless rays of sword light. The corpses of the Lord of Heaven fell around the sword cauldron like rain. There were more than a dozen broken souls screaming as they tried to escape the terrifying light of the sword cauldron. Sensing these souls, Yi Fei's Taiji sword cauldron suddenly underwent an unexpected change. Stimulated by these souls, an 8 trigrams door suddenly appeared in the sword cauldron. Even though the gate was extremely indistinct, it was emitting a mysterious light. With a whoosh, it shone on one of the souls. That soul immediately screamed and dissipated, turning into the purest soul power that surged into the 8 trigrams door. This scene was beyond the expectations of the family Wang warriors. No one expected that there would be a door in this magical sword cauldron that could easily destroy their souls. Endless terror filled these family Wang warriors who had lost their physical bodies and only had their souls left. They screamed in fear, "Demon, he is a real demon. Family head, save us. Sorry, no one can save you today." Yi Fei's expression was filled with surprise. Then it turned cold. Since these people wanted to kill him, they had to pay the price in blood. Being merciful to one's enemy was the greatest cruelty to oneself. The changes in the sword cauldron finally made Yi Fei understand what he needed to activate the 8 trigrams door. That was the soul. The power of the soul obtained after killing the opponent. The more soul power he absorbed, the stronger the power of the sword cauldron and the 8 trigrams door. After realizing this, Yi Fei naturally would not let these family Wang warriors off. He began to activate the 9 cauldron heaven-suppressing arts ghost gate mystique. The 8 trigrams door above the sword cauldron suddenly turned from blurry to completely clear. Then, the heavy door opened, forming 8 overlapping doors. Soul-slaying light shot out from each door. 8 of the family Wang warriors who had escaped were instantly killed. They turned into the most primitive soul power and were absorbed by the sword cauldron, increasing the power of the 8 trigrams door. Yi Fei was also dumbfounded. The Ghost Emperor's ability is indeed strange and dangerous. If I were to kill the souls of everyone present, what would happen to the 8 trigrams door? Inexplicably, such a dangerous thought appeared in his mind. However, Wang Yan's angry roar quickly woke Yi Fei up. His forehead was covered in a layer of cold sweat. The Ghost Emperor's mystique was not only dangerous and strange, but it could also affect the mind of the user. Fortunately, his will was as strong as a rock. If it was a person with a weak will, not only would they not be able to control the Ghost Emperor's mystique, they might even be controlled by the Ghost Emperor's mystique and become a puppet of the mystique. The Heaven Ghoul tribe was annihilated for a reason. Unfortunately, this little bit of negative influence is not enough to control me. Yi Fei roared. His absent-mindedness only lasted for a moment. Then, his gaze became resolute again. "Yimo, I'll fight it out with you today." Wang Yan's heart was bleeding. Yi Fei's attack just now had killed family Wang and more than a dozen Lord of Heaven. This was a pain that family Wang could not bear. This pain could only be washed away with Yi Fei's blood. At this moment, the void was filled with the loud sound of wind and thunder. This was family Wang's strongest move. Wind and thunder were created by the 100 palms. As Wang Yan attacked wildly, the entire world was covered by a huge palm of wind and thunder. Then, it came crashing down on Yi Fei. Dong! The sword cauldron shook violently. It was completely dented by this palm and looked like it was about to collapse. Yi Fei was shocked. The battle strength of a Tao Lord was indeed extraordinary. However, this also greatly stimulated Yi Fei's fighting spirit. The Ghost Emperor's mystique could affect one's mind, But on the other hand, such an effect could also be a form of training. As long as he could maintain his original heart and move forward courageously, so what if he was Renzu or the ancient emperor? As long as he was willing, he could succeed. Kill, Sword of Solitude. The battle intent on Yi Fei's body was like fire. His sword was ash-white as he slashed forward. The space in front of him suddenly became desolate and bleak. That huge palm of wind and thunder struck down. Not only did it fail to injure Yi Fei, but it was also disintegrated from the middle by the sword light, revealing a huge hole. Taking advantage of this gap, Yi Fei roared like a dragon. Fire dragon wings appeared on his back. He grabbed the Taiji sword cauldron in his hand. The door of the 8 trigrams appeared behind him. The Ghost Emperor walked out of time and space and rushed towards Wang Yan with the cauldron. It was also at this moment that Wang Yan's face suddenly became twisted and crazy. Yi Fei's strength made him feel great pressure and danger. If this kid doesn't die today, he will definitely be a great threat to my family. Wang. Yimo, you forced me to do this. Die. Attack of a Divine Lord. The void trembled and the clouds moved. Facing the sword cauldron, Wang Yan suddenly took out a metal staff and waved it. The staff was covered with divine runes and lit up one by one. Suddenly, it unleashed a Divine Lord attack and slashed at the sword cauldron. Yi Fei immediately felt the sword cauldron shake violently before it was penetrated by the metal staff. In the end, no matter how powerful the Taiji sword cauldron was, Yi Fei's cultivation level was too low. He could use the sword cauldron to suppress the Lord of Heaven, but he could not suppress a Tao Lord like Wang Yan. Especially when Wang Yan was fighting with his life and unleashed a Tao Lord attack, the threat was even greater. The iron rod smashed over and a huge hole was smashed in the Taiji sword cauldron. Then, the sword cauldron shattered into pieces. However, Wang Yan's rod did not stop. He smiled sinisterly and smashed towards Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei's expression suddenly became much more serious. However, he did not retreat. Instead, the moment Wang Yan released the Divine Lord attack, his golden body of laws suddenly burst forth. At the same time, the black iron heavy sword burst forth with endless light of desolation and slashed at Wang Yan again. Wang Yan laughed maniacally and swung his iron staff continuously with irresistible force, shattering the light of desolation. At this time, the dissipated sword cauldron suddenly gathered in front of Yi Fei and reformed into the complete Taiji sword cauldron. On the sword cauldron, the 8 doors shook and opened like 8 divine doors, filled with majesty and oppression. Yi Fei's slightly flustered heart suddenly calmed down. As long as the cauldron is here, I am here. As long as I am here, my fighting spirit will not stop. Wang Yan was just an ordinary man. What did he have to fear? Boom. Yi Fei's fighting spirit burned fiercely. The sword cauldron disappeared, and suddenly, he grabbed a heavy black ghost cauldron with one hand and slammed it forward. Wang Yan's unparalleled metal staff was instantly struck by lightning. The divine runes on the entire staff were shattered by the Ghost Emperor cauldron and collapsed. Chapter 23:41. Killing Tao Lord. An exalted Tao Lord had actually been heavily injured by a heavenly lord? The expressions of the black-armored man and the 3 elders of the Li family, who were fighting over the scroll fragments, changed drastically. Then, their greedy eyes all stared at the black cauldron in Yi Fei's hands. Wang Yan was so angry that he vomited blood. He said furiously, "Bastard, if you didn't have this cauldron, I would have killed you like stepping on an ant. Brothers of the Demon Tao, how long are you going to watch this show?" Wang Yan's words made everyone's expression change. In the past, it was a secret that family Wang had colluded with the demons. Now, family Wang had publicly exposed this secret. Hundreds of demons silently walked out of the forest. The 3 demon Tao Lords were in the lead. They did not make a move at first. Instead, they watched from the shadows. It was only when Wang Yan pointed it out in anger that they came out from the shadows. Bai Yanran's expression became more serious. He looked at Yi Fei worriedly. However, Yi Fei still straightened his body resolutely. His entire body was like a sharp sword as he strode forward. The Ghost Emperor cauldron in his hand emitted an astonishing dim light as it smashed onto the ground with a loud bang. The cauldron is here. Who dares to take it? Yi Fei faced the crowd alone. Even the black-armored man and the 3 elders of the Li family could not help but be secretly surprised by his heroism. What a pity! If this kid did not have such a precious treasure and is an enemy of the Li family, we could have recruited him. What's the point of saying all this now? This demon is crazy. He's just a small fry. How dare he look down on us Dao Lords? Does he really think that he can go against us just because he has the precious treasure of the heavenly ghoul race? How naive! The second and third brothers of the Li family had sinister smiles on their faces. At this moment, they had already obtained 2 pieces of the scroll. It was time to make their move on Yi Fei. The black-armored man also had 2 scrolls. He smiled maliciously and pointed his heavy saber at Yi Fei again. An invisible saber light slashed out. Kill. Wang Yan was the most vicious. Family Wang had suffered heavy losses when he attacked Yi Fei. This time, he had to kill Yi Fei, even if he had to go against the orders of the Yin-Yang Palace. It was rare for the 3 demon Dao Lords to not attack. Instead, they put on a lofty stance and said coldly, Yi Fei, you're at your wits' end now. If you hand over the scroll, we'll leave and spare your life. How about it? If you can kill these people, I'll give you this cauldron. Yi Fei stepped onto the cauldron, and a dim light erupted from the cauldron, instantly shattering the invisible blade light. Then, the cauldron turned around and slashed at the black-armored man, causing his expression to change drastically. The 3 elders of the Li family and Wang Yan also looked at the 3 demon Dao Lords warily. The demon Dao Lords were cruel and untrustworthy. They were famous for forgetting righteousness at the sight of profit. They were afraid that the demon Dao Lords would be tempted by Yi Fei. Wang Yan said anxiously, 3 demon brothers. Wang Yan, you don't have to say anything. We are not 3-year-old children. How can we be tempted by this small fry? Yi Fei, a lowly person like you has no right to have this cauldron. Since you don't want to hand it over, we can only snatch it from your corpse. Kill. The 3 demon Dao Lords roared at the same time. Following their orders, the nearby demons of the Lord of Heaven swarmed up the mountain like a tide. Yi Fei. Bai Yanran was anxious. She wanted to help. Don't move. Close your eyes obediently. I don't want you to see me kill. Yi Fei's words were strong and domineering. Bai Yanran closed her eyes, feeling wronged. Hearing Yi Fei's arrogant words, Wang Yan, the demon Dao Lords, the black-armored man, and the 3 elders of the Li family were all furious. They raised their hands and attacked with their strongest Dao Lord divine powers. Wang Yan took out another spirit enhancement weapon and was ready to launch a second divine lord attack. However, Yi Fei would not give Wang Yan any chance. Just as these people rushed up, Yi Fei flapped his azure dragon wings and soared into the sky like an azure dragon. In an instant, he appeared in front of Wang Yan from the top of the mountain. Kill. Yi Fei raised the cauldron with both hands. The Ghost Emperor cauldron whistled violently as it smashed down on Wang Yan's head. Wang Yan was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. He could only shout with all his might, "This cauldron is too heavy. Kill." The 3 demon Dao Lords roared. However, they did not save Wang Yan. Instead, they took the opportunity to attack together, wanting to snatch the Ghost Emperor cauldron first. Wang Yan was so angry that he vomited blood. Family Wang usually agreed to the demons' request. However, when they were in danger, the demons abandoned him like a broken shoe. In his grief and anger, Wang Yan could only risk his life and launch his strongest defensive divine powers in an attempt to block the Ghost Emperor cauldron. At this moment Yi Fei sneered. As he smashed the Ghost Emperor cauldron, He also activated the 9 cauldron heaven suppressing art. This divine ability was originally prepared to activate the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. When the Ghost Emperor Cauldron resonated with the heaven-suppressing incantation, the entire Ghost Emperor Cauldron suddenly glowed with a dark light. There was no need to burn Yi Fei's bloodline power again. The cauldron had already shattered Wang Yan's defensive body. There was a loud bang. Wang Yan's entire body was smashed into a pile of mush. Within the mush, there was a panicked divine soul that was trying to escape. However, a ghost gate appeared on the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Divine light shone on the divine soul. Wang Yan's divine soul immediately screamed and dissipated on the spot. Family head. Some of the family Wang martial artists who had sealed the void cried out in fear. They could not believe that their Dao Lord family head had been killed by Yi Fei's cauldron. Yi Fei, die! Brother Wang, we have avenged you! The 3 demon Dao Lords were filled with grief and anger. Some of them even shed tears. They grabbed Yi Fei's body together, wanting to torture Yi Fei to death. Cauldron, come back! Yi Fei roared. As he controlled the Ghost Emperor Cauldron to fly back, he stepped on the cauldron and walked directly into the Ghost Gate. Boom! The moment Yi Fei walked into the Ghost Gate, the entire Ghost Emperor Cauldron shone with a terrifying light. It was as if the Soul Cauldron had suddenly gained a life of its own. There were 3 loud bangs. The 3 demon Dao Lords' divine powers hit the cauldron, but they only caused a ripple of light. Their expressions were filled with shock, followed by deep fear. This is impossible. Didn't our intelligence say that Yimo could only activate the Ghost Emperor Cauldron and not control it? At this moment, Yi Fei was not activating the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. He was clearly controlling it as if it was his own arm. The moment he blocked the divine powers of the 3 demon Dao Lords, Yi Fei let out a low growl. He stepped on the Soul Cauldron and suddenly crashed into one of the demons. Chapter 23:42. A bloodbath. Another Dao Lord was killed in one move. The black-armored man's domineering aura suddenly dissipated. The 3 elders of the Li family were in disbelief. Li Chong suddenly realized that his legs were trembling. He accidentally wet his pants again. Unfortunately, no one was paying attention to him. All eyes were on Yi Fei and the incredible Soul Cauldron under Yi Fei's feet. Suddenly, 2 demonic howls shook the void. Hearing these howls, the demonic Lord of Heaven, who had already reached the peak, all looked terrified. Commander, don't, why not? With this cauldron, Yimo can control the entire core world. Sooner or later, we will be wiped out. Since that's the case, why not use your deaths in exchange for the glory of our demonic race? One of the demon Dao Lords said coldly. The other demon Dao Lord let out an even sharper howl. Hearing this, the hundreds of demonic Lord of Heaven instantly lost their mind. Like the craziest wild beasts, they roared and even tore their bodies apart, revealing their bloody innards. Then, with a loud bang, one of the demonic Lord of Heaven self-detonated, followed by a second, a third, a 10th. The self-detonation of one Lord of Heaven wasn't scary, but if hundreds of Lords of Heaven self-detonated at the same time, the power would be too terrifying. In the depths of the void, a terrifying ball of blood and fire seemed to explode. The boundless power of the Lord of Heaven's self-detonation swept through the void. Many of the family Wang martial artists, who had worked hard to seal the void, were mercilessly swallowed by this ball of blood and fire before they could understand what was going on. Similarly, the Lord of Heaven of the Li family and the Lord of Heaven of the Tyrant's Blade School were also engulfed. The self-detonation of these demonic humans didn't differentiate between friend and foe. In order to kill Yi Fei, the 2 demon Dao Lords didn't hesitate to let everyone present die with him. Yi Fei's expression suddenly became extremely solemn. He did not care about the life and death of others, but nothing could happen to Bai Yanran and the dragon turtle behind him. Suddenly Yi Fei roared. Following his roar, a layer of terrifying blood flames burned from his body and poured into the Ghost Emperor Cauldron beneath his feet. The Ghost Emperor cauldron, which was originally filled with a dim light, suddenly became even more resplendent after receiving the power of Yi Fei's bloodline. In the end, it even burned like a comet. At this moment, the body of the cauldron also expanded from the size of a round table to the size of a mountain. It landed between Bai Yanran and the dragon turtle, forming a tripod that protected them firmly. Boom! The boundless power of the explosion engulfed the entire mountain. In an instant, the mountain was reduced to nothingness, as if it had never existed. This was the power of the explosion of the 100 Lord of Heaven. This power was even more terrifying than the attack of a monarch god. After the hurricane passed, only the black-armored man from the tyrant's saber school survived. The 3 elders of the Li family were even more miserable, their faces filled with grief. Behind them, the Li family martial artists who had followed them were completely annihilated. Even their souls did not manage to escape. On the other hand, Li Chong, whom they despised, was too scared and retreated in advance, miraculously escaping with his life. However, at this moment, no one paid attention to Li Chong, who had escaped. No one had the time to feel sorry for the dead Lord of Heaven of the various families. Everyone who was still alive stared at the mountain peak that had been reduced to nothingness. "Is Yi Mo dead?" the 3 elders of the Li family muttered to themselves. "Humph! We did not hesitate to use the forbidden evil technique of the demon tribe and sacrificed the 100 Lord of Heaven. How can Yi Mo not die?" The 2 demon Tao lords were full of confidence. They did not even wait for the blood mist from the explosion to dissipate completely. The 2 demon Tao lords could not wait to charge forward. "Stop! That cauldron belongs to the tyrant's saber school. Whoever dares to touch it will be an enemy of the tyrant's saber school." The black-armored man also looked greedy. When the 2 demon Tao lords attacked, he actually tried to sneak up on them from behind. The 2 demon Tao lords immediately roared in anger. However, before they could retaliate, the 3 elders of the Li family suddenly grinned and appeared behind the black-armored man, unleashing their massacre mystique. "2 demon brothers, the Li family does not want the cauldron. We only want the inheritance scroll of the Heaven Ghoul tribe. How about we join forces and destroy the tyrant's saber school first? Old dogs of the Li family, how dare you collude with the demon tribe?" The black-armored man had not expected to be attacked from the front and back. He was so angry that he almost exploded. Then, the entire void really exploded. However, it was not because of the black-armored man, but because of the blood mist that filled the air. A black cauldron charged out like lightning. Just as the 3 factions were engaged in a chaotic battle, a sword light suddenly appeared on the body of the nearest demon Tao lord. "No, how can you not be dead?" the demon Tao lord screamed in fear. He hurriedly used his mystique to force the black cauldron back. On the black cauldron, Yi Fei wielded the dark steel heavy sword with both hands. He used the solitary sword to neutralize the Tao lord's mystique. The indestructible sword token released a deathly sword light that instantly pierced the demon Tao lord's throat and came out from the back of his neck. The demon Tao lord's eyes widened. Even in death, he could not believe that Yi Fei could survive the self-destruction of 100 lords of heaven. However, he did not think about who had condensed the Ghost Emperor cauldron. It was the ancient emperor. Even though the cauldron was broken, it was not something that a mere Tao lord could break. Without looking at the demon Tao lord whose throat had been pierced, Yi Fei's killing intent surged. He suddenly controlled the Ghost Emperor cauldron and slammed it towards the second demon Tao lord. The demon tribe was even worse. He did not even have the chance to react when the Ghost Emperor cauldron slammed into him. Boom! Wherever the Ghost Emperor cauldron passed, only a pool of muddy flesh was left. Then Yi Fei did not stop. He continued to charge towards the 3 elders of the Li family and the black-armored man. The 3 elders of the Li family were so frightened that they broke out in cold sweat. They could only shout, "Yi Mo, you have already offended the family Wang, the demons, the Divine Monarch Palace, the Yin Yang Palace, and many other factions. If you offend the Li family, there will be no place for you in the entire city of the Divine Monarchs. You 3 old dogs. You should have thought of this moment when you attacked me. Cauldron kill. Boom, boom, boom. The Ghost Emperor Cauldron suddenly sped up and slammed into the 3 elders of the Li family in one breath, leaving behind 3 ghastly trails of flesh and blood. The remaining black-armored man no longer had the domineering aura he had when he first arrived. Instead, he was filled with fear. He suddenly knelt down and said, "Young Master Yi, I finally know my mistake. Let me go. The Tyrant's Blade School is willing to compensate you." Compensate? I don't care. Boom. Without another word, the Ghost Emperor Cauldron slammed into the black-armored man. The black-armored man was smashed to pieces, and even his divine soul exploded. Dong. Chapter 2343. Du Chang's plan. Who else dares to fight for the cauldron? Yi Fei's voice was like thunder, exploding in the void. At this moment, there were a few family Wang Lord of Heaven in the void nearby. They looked at Yi Fei with fear, but they did not dare to approach Yi Fei even though Yi Fei was already panting. Continuously activating the Ghost Emperor Cauldron consumed a huge amount of his dark force and bloodline power. However, the terror of the Ghost Emperor Cauldron had already scared these people out of their wit. No one dared to approach. Instead, they retreated and ran away as fast as they could. Yi Fei did not chase after them. It was not that he did not want to, but that he could not. After all, his realm was still too low. He was only a mid-stage Lord of Heaven, but he had to activate the Ghost Emperor Cauldron with all his strength. Taking advantage of these Lord of Heaven's escape, Yi Fei immediately jumped onto the dragon turtle's back and said, "Blackie, let's go back to Ghost City." Why do we have to go back to Ghost City? Bai Yanran was a little confused. Could it be that Yi Fei had gone crazy from killing and wanted to settle the score with those demon tribes? Because only Ghost City can let you master the 9 Cauldron Sky Suppression technique. Also, Yi Fei looked meaningfully at the darkness in the distance. He did not say much and entered the core world again. However, he did not notice that behind him, Bai Yanran's expression was a little shy and strange. He took the risk to go back to Ghost City to let me master the sky suppression technique. This guy, what is he thinking? Bai Yanran was suddenly a little confused. At this moment, Yi Fei did not know that Bai Yanran had misunderstood. Otherwise, he would definitely have fallen off the dragon turtle's back. One must know that the reason he returned to Ghost City again was only to help Bai Yanran condense the soul cauldron. The real reason was that Xiao Chao had sensed a familiar aura outside. Unfortunately, activating the Ghost Emperor Cauldron had depleted his energy to the limit. Yi Fei could only settle for the next best thing and return to Ghost City first. The few family Wang that had escaped had no idea that they had been targeted by the Lord of Heaven. They were extremely glad that they had successfully escaped. Haha, that Yimo is strong, but he is still too soft-hearted. He has exposed his trump card by letting us go. As long as we pass this information to young Master Yang Hao, we will have done a great service. It's not just a great merit, it's also a great fortune. Look, what is this? Another family Wang, the Lord of Heaven, proudly took out a few scroll fragments. Immediately, everyone's breathing quickened. The inheritance scroll of the Heaven Ghoul clan. That's right, it's the inheritance scroll. That Yimo was so focused on killing those Dao Lords that he forgot to take back the scroll fragments. Now we have it for nothing. With this scroll, let alone breaking through to Dao Lord, even breaking through to Divine Lord. Who is it? Just as these Lord of Heaven were happily talking, they suddenly sensed that a person had appeared in front of them. This person's back was so familiar. That back, why does it look like Wang Xiu? How is that possible? Wang Xiu died in the core world long ago. Otherwise, the family head wouldn't have led us to besiege Yi Fei and lost our lives for nothing. Who are you? These were the Lord of Heaven after all. Even though this person's back looked very familiar, they didn't dare to be careless. Instead, they rapidly approached as if they were facing a great enemy. Die! A soft roar suddenly came from the night sky. The figure in front of them slowly turned around, revealing Du Chang's sinister and cold face. A huge flaming saber suddenly slashed out. These family head Lord of Heaven had already died with their eyes wide open. At the same time, the scrolls in their hands fell into Du Chang's hands. Du Chang didn't even look at them before putting them into his space belt. Then, he said to the figure not far away, "Li Chong, you're good. You didn't betray me. Since Yi Mo has already been targeted by the Yin Yang Palace, you should hurry back now and sow discord between Yi Fei and the Yin Yang Palace." "Big brother, I'll go now." "But big brother, your body." Li Chong trembled all over. He couldn't afford to offend Yi Fei, nor could he afford to offend Du Chong. Stuck in the middle, Li Chong was in a dilemma. He didn't dare to disobey Du Chang's orders. However, Li Chong still felt that there was something wrong with the current Du Chong. When he heard this, Du Chang's cold face was already filled with a terrifying killing intent. He actually shouted in a sharp voice, "Scram! If you don't want to die, you'd better watch your mouth." With that, Du Chong turned around and left. However, his footsteps were a little awkward. Li Chong was so scared that his face turned ashen. A shocking question surfaced in his mind. "Big brother's footsteps, why does it look like, Yi Fei, this is bad. You only cared about returning to Ghost City. The Heavenly Ghoul tribe's legacy scroll is still scattered outside." Bai Yanran recalled this matter midway, and suddenly felt very vexed. It was bad enough that she didn't help in Yi Fei's battle. Now, she even lost the Heavenly Ghoul tribe's legacy. Yi Fei didn't say anything. He just threw out another legacy scroll. Bai Yanran was dumbstruck. If the legacy scroll was still there, then the one Yi Fei threw out earlier was very likely a fake. When she thought about how Yi Fei had used a fake scroll to cause internal strife between the Li family, the Tyrant's Blade School, and family Wang, Bai Yanran suddenly looked at Yi Fei seriously. "Yi Fei, I feel that you're very good at cheating people." "Bai Yanran, actually, I've always been an honest person." Yi Fei felt that it was necessary to prove his innocence. Bai Yanran rolled her eyes when she heard this. She muttered softly, "You're not human when you're honest." Yi Fei's face darkened. He slapped the dragon turtle's head on the spot and made it hurry back to Ghost City. He also told Bai Yanran the method to cultivate the 9 cauldron heaven suppressing art. Then, he began to help Bai Yanran condense the soul cauldron. This was also Bai Yanran's way of thanking him for coming to remind him. Moreover, the 9 cauldron heaven suppressing art was difficult to comprehend. Once it was fully comprehended, cultivating it would be no different from other mystique. As a genius in spiritual attachment, Bai Yanran was also an intelligent woman. Naturally, her cultivation speed was very fast. In about a day's time, Bai Yanran used Ghost City's ability to condense her own soul cauldron. Yi Fei also took advantage of this time to refine large amounts of mystic meridians to replenish his mystic energy. However, while cultivating, Yi Fei didn't know that the fake scroll he made up had fallen into Du Chang's hands. Moreover, Du Chang believed it to be real. The first thing he did after obtaining the scroll was to return to the Divine King's palace and concentrate on cultivating. Ever since he saw Yi Fei condense the soul cauldron and slaughter everyone, Du Chang's heart was burning with passion. "Yi Mo, just you wait. When I, Du Chang, also condense a soul cauldron, I will personally eat you piece by piece." Ha ha ha! A burst of hair-raising laughter suddenly rang out in the cultivation room of the Divine King's palace. Several disciples of the Divine King's palace who passed by trembled in fear. Inside Lord Pan's palace, Yang Hao also slammed the table in shock. He glared fiercely at Li Chong and said, "What did you say? That Yi Fei actually obtained the inheritance of the Heaven Ghoul race and used a broken cauldron to kill Wang Yan and many other Dao lords?" It's absolutely true. Not only Wang Yin, but 3 Dao lords of the Li family also died tragically at Yi Mo's hands. I heard that the Yinyang Palace has a grudge against Yi Mo. I can only follow the orders of the Patriarch to ask the Yinyang Palace to eliminate this demon, Li Chong said fearfully. Chapter 2344. A clean slate. Yang Hao calmly ordered someone to take Li Chong away before looking at the old man beside him. How much of Li Chong's words can be trusted? He's just a frightened bird. There's no need to worry about him. The Li family is just a mid-tier family in the city of Divine Monarch. He wouldn't dare lie to us even if he had 10 times the guts, the old man said confidently. Yang Hao nodded, then shook his head and said coldly, Li Chong might be telling the truth, but it's definitely not the Li family who ordered him to come. The Li family is too small and Yi Fei is too strong. If I'm not wrong, it should be someone else who ordered Li Chong to come. This person wants to borrow my hand to eliminate Yi Fei. A cold glint flashed across Yang Hao's eyes. This calmness and wisdom were not something a hedonistic young master should have. The old man didn't doubt Yang Hao's words at all. He immediately said angrily, someone actually dares to use our Yinyang Palace. Young master, give me 10 days. I will definitely find out who is behind Li Chong. It's too late. Yi Fei has already obtained the Sky Ghoul race's inheritance. As time passes, the entire city of Divine Monarchs will be alerted. We must capture this person and seize his inheritance before the other factions do. Yang Hao couldn't help but feel excited after hearing Li Chong's description of the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Originally, he was only here to avenge Yang Ming. If he could avenge Yang Ming and acquire a shocking inheritance at the same time, that would be even better. The old man understood Yang Hao's intentions and couldn't help but feel worried. But young master, according to Li Chong, Yi Fei can even kill a Dao Lord with the cauldron. I'm worried that our strength is too weak. Yang Hao laughed heartily when he heard that. He stood up confidently and said, Elder Mu, don't worry. If Yi Fei thinks that he can go against our Yinyang Palace just because he got lucky and obtained the cauldron, he will definitely pay the price in blood. Yang Hao was full of confidence in himself. This confidence invisibly infected the old man, who immediately asked excitedly, Young master, when do we make our move? The sooner the better, of course. Let's head to the entrance of the core world and block him. Yang Hao said coldly. Since he had already probed Yi Fei's strongest trump card, he couldn't wait to kill Yi Fei and steal his treasures. The unusual movement of the Yinyang Palace was naturally transmitted to the Lord Pan Palace at the first moment. Bai Suifeng's expression was instantly filled with solemnity, making a plan before acting. This Yang Hao is indeed a character. It seems that Yi Fei is most likely doomed this time. Shizhong, hurry to the entrance of the Earth's core world immediately. What about Yi Fei? Bai Shizhong asked. Good luck. We can't destroy the 1,000 years of Lord Pan Palace's foundation for him alone. Bai Suifeng's expression was cold. However, not long after he chased Bai Shizhong away, he suddenly changed into a black robe and put on a mask. Although the Lord Pan Palace can't show up, I can only hide my identity and temporarily block the Yinyang Palace for a while. Next, let's see if Yi Fei knows what's good for him. Obviously, Bai Suifeng didn't think that Yi Fei would be a match for Yang Hao. The reason why he acted secretly was only to do his part. Unfortunately, Yi Fei was destined to be unable to accept Bai Suifeng's goodwill. After helping Bai Yanran refine the Soul Cauldron, Yi Fei rode on the Dragon Turtle and returned to the city of Divine Kings resolutely. He even rushed directly to the Lord Pan Palace. At this moment, Bai Shizhong had just walked out of the Lord Pan Palace when he saw his sister and Yi Fei riding on the same turtle from afar. Both of them were talking and laughing. Suddenly, Bai Shizhong had the urge to chop Yi Fei to death with a knife. This scourge. We are so anxious for him here, but he still has the mood to flirt with my sister. Yi Mo, why aren't you scramming? Are you here to die? Bai Shizhong rushed onto the dragon turtle, and used his body to push Yi Fei and Bai Yanran to the side. This made Yi Fei very depressed. He had only been exchanging insights on refining the soul cauldron with Bai Yanran. He had no other intentions. Bai Shizhong was being too nosy. Thinking of this, Yi Fei suddenly had a mischievous thought. He deliberately cupped his hands and said, "Elder brother, why do you say that? Perhaps we can become a family in the future." There was a double meaning to his words. When Bai Yanran heard this, he understood that Yi Fei was talking about the heavenly palace of despair. When Bai Shizhong heard this, he understood it to mean something else. He was so angry that his hair stood on end. He immediately drew his knife and placed it on Yi Fei's neck. "If you don't scram, I won't need the Yin Yang Palace to kill you. I will end your life right now." "Elder brother." Yi Fei was sweating profusely. "Scram. Who's your elder brother?" The veins on Bai Shizhong's forehead throbbed. At this moment, a foppish voice came from afar. "Elder brother, you're right. Yanran is my fiancé. Yi Fei, you're just a small fish about to die. It's best that you don't call her that. Be careful that you don't die a horrible death." The one who came out was naturally Yang Hao. At this moment, Yang Hao was greasy and looked like a foppish young master. No one could tell what he was thinking. At the same time, more than a dozen Tao lords appeared beside Yang Hao. The strongest among them was an old man who was a half-step divine lord. They all looked at Yi Fei coldly as if they were looking at a dead man. "You're Yi Fei, the remnant of the heavenly palace of despair? You've got guts. How dare you come here and seek death?" "I'm Yi Fei, but I have nothing to do with the heavenly palace of despair. I hope you can understand this clearly. Also, I'm not here to seek death. I'm here to propose marriage," Yi Fei said as he strode down from the dragon turtle. His words almost made Bai Yanran and the dragon turtle vomit blood. He was clearly trying to anger Yang Hao. Unfortunately, with Yang Hao's shrewdness, how could he be angered by Yi Fei? Instead, it was Bai Shizhong's expression that changed drastically. "What? Propose marriage?" He looked at Yi Fei and then at Bai Yanran. Suddenly, his heart ached and he almost cried. Has sister's relationship with him already reached this stage? Should I give them my blessings? However, he really didn't like Yi Fei. Of course, Yang Hao was even more displeased. Knowing that Yi Fei was trying to anger him, Yang Hao's expression suddenly darkened. "Is there any meaning in saying this when you're about to die? Yi Fei, Bai Yanran should have told you why I'm here. I don't care if you're a remnant of the heavenly palace of despair. Since you killed Yang Ming, you must die." Yi Fei looked at Yang Hao in surprise. This person looked like a spoiled brat, but he wasn't an ordinary spoiled brat. He couldn't help but be a little more cautious. At the same time, he continued to deny it. "I didn't kill Yang Ming. He died at the hands of Rizu. If you have the ability, go to Qingzhou and seek revenge from Rizu." "Impudent! If you hadn't colluded with Rizu, how could Yang Ming and the 10 Tao lords of the Yin Yang Palace have died?" The Tao lords of the Yin Yang Palace were furious and murderous. Chapter 2345. Pan Wang's Test. Your condition is for me to hand over this cauldron. A smile also appeared on Yi Fei's face. At this moment, he had already seen Li Chong hiding behind the crowd. He naturally understood that the Yin Yang Palace must have found out that he had obtained the inheritance of the Heaven Ghoul tribe. Yang Hao's change in attitude must be because of the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Yi Fei didn't get angry. He just calmly took out the Ghost Emperor Cauldron and placed it in front of him. "Very good. Is this the Heaven Ghoul race's supreme treasure, the Ghost Emperor Cauldron? Such a treasure cauldron will only bring you disaster if it falls into your hands. Yi Fei, you are a smart person. You should know what to do now, right?" Yang Hao looked like a spoiled brat. Only his eyes showed the patience and depth of a venomous snake. Some of the Tao lords of Yin Yang Palace walked towards Yi Fei arrogantly. Their goal was obvious. They wanted to snatch the treasure cauldron in front of Yi Fei. As for whether they would let Yi Fei go after Yi Fei handed over the treasure cauldron, that would depend on Yang Hao's mood. If Yang Hao was in a good mood, he might cripple Yi Fei's sky palace and make Yi Fei an ordinary person. If he was in a bad mood, even if Yi Fei handed over the treasure cauldron, he would still die. Yang Hao was obviously leaning towards the latter. When he ordered the Tao Lords to snatch the cauldron, he had already sent a hint to the half-step Divine Lord Elder beside him. As long as Yi Fei handed over the Ghost Emperor cauldron, this elder would personally capture Yi Fei. Seeing that Yi Fei had taken the initiative to hand over the Ghost Emperor cauldron just because of Yang Hao's threat, Bai Shizhong was so angry that he clenched his fist. Does this guy not have any backbone? With him like this, how can I be at ease handing my sister over to him? Brother, what nonsense are you talking about? Bai Yanran stomped her foot. She knew very well that Yi Fei wasn't the kind of person to compromise. Just as the Tao Lords of Yin-Yang Palace were about to touch the Ghost Emperor cauldron, something strange happened. The entire Ghost Emperor cauldron suddenly emitted an extremely sharp light. Boom! The entire Ghost Emperor cauldron was suddenly spun by Yi Fei and smashed towards one of the Yin-Yang Palace Tao Lords. That person had been mocking Yi Fei for being cowardly a moment ago. The next moment, his eyes widened in horror as he watched his body being smashed into pieces by the Ghost Emperor cauldron. On the ground, there was a muddy path of blood. Yi Fei stood proudly on top of the cauldron. The Ghost Emperor cauldron is very precious. If you want it, then use your lives to buy it. Impudent! Let's attack together and kill this demon. The other Tao Lords of Yin-Yang Palace were all enraged. They roared furiously and formed more than 10 terrifying whirlwinds that charged towards Yi Fei. Yang Hao's expression darkened abruptly. Even he did not expect Yi Fei to be so arrogant. Not only was he not afraid of his powerful Yin-Yang Palace, he even dared to kill him directly. Interesting. Looks like Yang Ming didn't die in vain. Unfortunately, you shouldn't have offended the Yin-Yang Palace. You shouldn't have killed someone in Lord Pan's palace. Not only is this disrespectful to me, but it's also disrespectful to Lord Pan's palace. Brother Bai, am I right? Yang Hao did not attack but looked at Bai Shizhong with a smile. After all, this was Lord Pan's palace. Yi Fei and Bai Yanran had a special relationship. Yang Hao had to be wary of Lord Pan's palace's possible attack. His words were actually forcing Lord Pan's palace to take a stand. Bai Shizhong's expression darkened. However, this matter concerned the survival of Lord Pan's palace. He did not dare to speak casually. He could only look up at the void in the depths of Lord Pan's palace. Lord Pan was in the void, watching the battle outside Lord Pan's palace with a pair of cold eyes. Bai Suifeng's expression was also solemn. Lord Pan, are we really not going to attack? Lord Pan shook his head coldly. If he can't even overcome such a crisis, then he doesn't deserve the Divine Lord Scroll's golden body of despair. What? Our Lord Pan's palace actually has the Divine Lord Scroll's golden body of despair. Bai Suifeng's body shook violently. Even he did not know about this secret. Bai Suifeng suddenly understood why Lord Pan allowed Yin-Yang Palace to target Yi Fei. In the eyes of others, Lord Pan was being unreasonable and cold. However, in Bai Suifeng's eyes, this was clearly Lord Pan's test for Yi Fei. After understanding this, Bai Suifeng no longer remained silent. Instead, he said coldly, "Everyone from Lord Pan's palace retreat. Yi Fei's life has nothing to do with Lord Pan's palace." Father! Bai Yanran immediately panicked. However, Bai Shizhong forcefully pulled her back into Lord Pan's palace. "Brother Yi, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. They're just a bunch of weaklings. I can kill them with a flip of my hand. Cauldron kill." Yi Fei laughed loudly. His fighting spirit did not waver because of Lord Pan's palace's retreat. Instead, he became braver and stronger as he fought. The ghost emperor cauldron in his hand emitted a deep dark light. It was like a star of death, shattering the void and killing the enemy. More than a dozen Tao lords of Yin Yang Palace, who were attacking Yi Fei, shouted in unison. They stood in a row and suddenly formed a mysterious array. This array was like Yin and Yang. In the end, it turned into a Yin-Yang divine gate and shot towards Yi Fei. Yi Fei suddenly felt his divine soul shake, as if it was going to be knocked out of his body by this light and fall into endless darkness. Yin-Yang Palace, soul-absorbing guide. The Tao Lords of Yin-Yang Palace shouted again. More than a dozen Yin-Yang divine gates overlapped and shook the world. They even wanted to shake Yi Fei's divine soul completely out of the heavenly palace. Get lost! At this critical moment, Yi Fei's blood flames burned. While using his bloodline to stimulate the Ghost Emperor Cauldron, he stepped onto the cauldron. Endless dark light in the Ghost Emperor Cauldron instantly condensed into a ghost gate and enveloped Yi Fei. Boom! More than a dozen Yin-Yang divine lights hit the ghost gate, but they couldn't break it. After all, this Ghost Emperor Cauldron was the soul cauldron condensed by the Ghost Emperor. Even though the Ghost Emperor had passed away, the Ghost Emperor Cauldron was still damaged. However, its power was still not something that a mere Tao Lord could withstand. In particular, Yi Fei had mastered the 9 Cauldron Heaven suppressing art, which could activate the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Kill. The moment he blocked the Yin-Yang divine light, Yi Fei's gaze suddenly turned cold. The Ghost Emperor Cauldron under his feet also erupted with endless dark light at this moment. Like a star in the darkness, it once again collided with the body of a Tao Lord of Yin-Yang Palace. That Tao Lord instantly revealed a horrified expression. Save me! Yimo, why aren't you stopping? The other Tao Lords of Yin-Yang Palace were furious. Some even took out their spiritual enhancement weapons and activated their divine runes, preparing to launch a divine lord attack. However, before that person could do anything, Yi Fei suddenly roared from the Soul Cauldron. While controlling the Ghost Emperor Cauldron to collide, Yi Fei condensed another cauldron behind him. It was the Taiji Sword Cauldron, which formed the Taiji 8 trigrams. Suddenly, it slashed towards the Tao Lord who had activated the spiritual enhancement weapon. This wasn't the end. While fighting against 2, Yi Fei's black iron heavy sword appeared in his hand. As he activated the divine runes, he slashed out a sword light of loneliness and death towards the 3rd Tao Lord of Yin-Yang Palace. Chapter 2346. This kid deserves death. Attack. Capture him. Yang Hao ordered once more. The half-step Divine Lord Elder immediately walked out from behind him. The Elder had not made a move from beginning to end, but Yi Fei's ferocity in controlling the Ghost Emperor Cauldron had finally made him want to kill. A huge Yin-Yang divine light condensed into a divine seal that blocked the 3 Tao Lords who were being attacked. Yi Fei's sword cauldron was suddenly shattered by the divine seal. The dark steel heavy sword was bent under the pressure of the divine seal. Even the divine inscriptions showed signs of destruction. This was the difference in cultivation realms. Although Yi Fei could rely on the Ghost Emperor Cauldron to fight against a Tao Lord as the Lord of Heaven, it was still too much for him to deal with a half-step Divine Lord who had cultivated to the limit of the Tao Lord realm. This cauldron is purely a waste of a treasure in the hands of a demon like you. Yimo, it's not too late for you to hand over the treasured cauldron now. Yang Hao's expression was fiery. The strength of the Ghost Emperor Cauldron had really exceeded his expectations. If he had this cauldron, he would even have the confidence to fight Feng Yun, who was ranked first on the Earth Carnage roll. Yang Hao was determined to get this cauldron. With a wave of his hand, the other Tao Lords of the Yin-Yang Palace also came to their senses. They roared angrily and charged forward once more. Yi Fei's expression immediately turned grave. A half-step Divine Lord had already made him feel great pressure. Now that there were more than a dozen Tao Lords besieging him, the pressure was undoubtedly even greater. However, in order to establish himself in the city of divine monarchs, in order to obtain the Divine Lord Scroll's golden body of despair, and in order to see Zhao Yu, Yi Fei knew very well that he had to withstand this pressure. He had to withstand it. "Bloodline, burn for me!" Yi Fei suddenly roared. An incomparably powerful force in his body was instantly awakened. Intense blood flames burned like stars and flowed into the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. The entire Ghost Emperor Cauldron suddenly emitted a dim light like a lit star. It whistled and spun wildly around Yi Fei. Every time it spun, it would coincidentally block the half-step Divine Lord's fatal attack. The Soul Cauldron was a weapon that could attack and defend. The half-step Divine Lord immediately roared furiously. His yin-yang divine seal became stronger and faster. Then, the entire sky was filled with terrifying divine seals. The void shattered and the earth shook. But what shocked the half-step Divine Lord was Cauldron. After all, this was the Soul Cauldron, the Ghost Emperor's body. After all, this was the Soul Cauldron. Not only was Yang Hao not angry when he saw this, his expression became even more fanatical as he burst out laughing. "Haha, I was right to come to the city of divine kings. Not only will I be able to marry a great beauty, I'll also be able to obtain such a precious cauldron. Kill him and give the cauldron to the young master." This time, Yi Fei couldn't use the Ghost Emperor Cauldron to block, because the half-step Divine Lord's attack was too strong. The Ghost Emperor Cauldron was constantly being attacked by the half-step Divine Lords. This also created a huge gap in Yi Fei's defense. The half-step Divine Lords of the Yin-Yang Palace seized this opening and joined forces to kill Yi Fei. "No, I have to save Yi Fei." Bai Yanran didn't dare watch any longer. Bai Shizhong also looked solemn as he looked into the deep void again. No sound came from the void. Bai Shizhong was shocked. Is the Patriarch really going to leave Yi Fei in the lurch and sacrifice him? Sword of Solitude, shatter! Yi Fei roared. He didn't hesitate in this moment of life and death. He used the Sword of Solitude to its limit. A grayish-white sword light with a strong sense of solitude appeared in the sky and collided with the half-step divine yin-yang light. Silently, the half-step divine yin-yang light withered and was annihilated. The half-step divine lords of the yin-yang palace were all shocked. Then, they smiled maliciously. The Sword of Solitude was indeed strange, but how many divine yin-yang light could it block against the combined attack of more than a dozen divine lords? Boom, boom, boom. In fact, the Sword of Solitude only blocked 3 divine yin-yang light before it was destroyed by even more divine yin-yang light. In the end, Yi Fei's cultivation level was still too low and there were too many opponents. The terrifying divine yin-yang light continued to attack Yi Fei. The Ghost Emperor Cauldron also let out a loud vibration. This was the fluctuation caused by the half-step Divine Lord's crazy attack. Yi Fei is finished. Li Chong stood at the back of the crowd and looked relieved. Suddenly, an even more dazzling deathly sword light burst out from the divine yin-yang light. This was the light of the Sword of Slaughter. It cut through the sky and slaughtered all the ghosts and deities. Several more divine yin-yang lights that were attacking Yi Fei were destroyed by the Sword of Slaughter. This shocked the divine lords of the yin-yang palace once again. How is it possible that he has 2 innate mystiques? Not to mention that he has 2 types. Even if he has 1 type, he will still die. After that, the Tao lords continued to laugh coldly. Yi Fei's Sword of Slaughter had only managed to shatter 5 of the yin-yang godly lights. Due to their advantage in numbers, there were still 3 more yin-yang godly lights that struck Yi Fei's body at lightning speed. I got it. Yimo is dead for sure. No, our divine yin-yang light was blocked by him. Is that the golden body of despair? Some of the divine lords of the yin-yang palace were shocked. A purple-gold flame suddenly burned in the destructive divine yin-yang light. It tore through the divine yin-yang light and walked out step by step. However, the moment it walked out, the divine yin-yang light couldn't bear the burden and shattered. However, the powerful defense of the golden body of despair still saved Yi Fei's life. Then, the divine lords of the yin-yang palace saw this. When Yi Fei walked out of the divine yin-yang light and his golden body shattered, a pair of azure dragon wings suddenly appeared on his back. Yang Hao die. Yi Fei didn't give the divine lords a chance to attack again. Relying on the speed of the azure dragon wings, he instantly flew over the divine lords' heads and attacked Yang Hao. This was Yi Fei's true goal. His initial plan wasn't to tangle with the divine lords of the yin-yang palace, but to target Yang Hao. As long as he captured Yang Hao, he would have a chance of turning the tables. The divine lords of the yin-yang palace roared in anger when they realized this. However, because Yi Fei was too fast, they could only watch as Yi Fei flew past them and attacked. Young master! The half-step divine lord's expression changed drastically. He didn't know whether to continue attacking Yi Fei or return to save Yang Hao. Chapter 2347. Xue Tu's words, slay. The Tao Lord of Yin-Yang Palace, Yang Hao, and the half-step Divine Lord Elder suddenly roared in unison. Boom! The black-robed Elder who had appeared behind Yang Hao had already made his move. What he used was the Yin-Yang Palace's most basic Yin-Yang sky-flipping hand. However, this seemingly basic divine ability exploded with terrifying power in the hands of the black-robed Elder. As the Elder made his move, the entire world seemed to be flipped upside down. The powerful pressure caused the ground to crack. The void in all directions started to shatter. No matter how fast Yi Fei was, even though he had already summoned the Ghost Emperor Cauldron and rushed into the Ghost Door, the Yin-Yang hand had already shattered Yi Fei's dragon wings and left a deep dent in the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Clang! The Ghost Emperor Cauldron shook violently as the ghostly light was shattered. Without the ghostly light, the Ghost Door that Yi Fei was hiding in immediately felt an invisible pressure. The Ghost Door exploded. Yi Fei's eyes were filled with deep fear. At the critical moment, he could only use the golden body of despair once again and use the dark steel heavy sword to block in front of him. However, it was useless. The golden body of despair was shattered on the spot and the dark steel heavy sword's burning divine inscriptions were completely destroyed. Yi Fei spat out a mouthful of blood as he was forced to retreat, leaving deep footprints in the void. This was the result of him using the Ghost Emperor Cauldron with all his strength. Without the Ghost Emperor Cauldron, Yi Fei couldn't imagine whether he could still survive against the terrifying Yin-Yang hand. I never expected that a divine lord would be hiding by your side. Yi Fei grabbed the cauldron with both hands and forcefully stabilized his body in the void. However, his eyes were staring coldly at Yang Hao. Yang Hao had originally thought that Yi Fei would definitely be afraid when he revealed his strongest trump card. No lord of heaven could face a divine lord without fear. This was a gap of two large realms. However, Yi Fei's eyes were filled with fighting spirit and no fear. This made Yang Hao very unhappy. Elder Yang, I hate the way he looks at me. Go over and break his legs. Make him kneel down and talk to me. Yanran, come over too. You are the woman I have my eyes on. How dare he hold you hostage? Today you will kill him with your own hands. Yang Hao's heart was extremely vicious. Not only did he want to torture Yi Fei, but he also wanted Bai Yanran to kill Yi with her own hands. Bai Luan, Lord of Heaven's Eyes, was the Emperor Cauldron's face to Yi Fei. Bai panicked immediately. He hurriedly looked up into the void. He hurriedly looked into the void and couldn't help but yell. There was a deathly silence in the void. There was no response. Bai Shizhong and Bai Yanran's hearts trembled. Had Lord Pan really decided to give up on Yi Fei? Yang Hao's eyes flashed with disappointment. Could it be that I'm overthinking things? Lord Pan's hall has nothing to do with Yi Fei. The only connection is probably Bai Yanran. When he thought of Bai Yanran, Yang Hao's body surged with murderous intent. Although he pretended to be a spoiled brat, he really did have some feelings for Bai Yanran. Now that he saw the woman he adored showing so much concern for their enemy, Yang Hao completely lost his patience. Elder Yang, I've changed my mind. Breaking his legs is too light a punishment. You go over and break his arms. Then hand them over to Bai Yanran. Yang Hao proposed an even more vicious plan. This plan not only infuriated Bai Yanran, but also Bai Shizhong. He was ready to intervene and stop all this. However, Yi Fei shouted coldly, "Don't come over. This is between me and Yinyang Palace. It has nothing to do with Lord Pan's hall." Taking a deep breath, Yi Fei stood up again, swaying. At this time, Xiao Chao also threw out the dragon turtle. The dragon turtle's demonic aura surged as it protected Yi Fei as if facing a great enemy. Yi Fei laughed loudly. "Blackie, back off too. If a vicious spoiled brat and a few old dogs can scare me, then how can I establish myself in the city of divine kings?" Boom! The ghost emperor cauldron rose from the ground and took Yi Fei to the sky again, step by step, towards Yang Hao and Lord God Soap. This scene caused many of the Dao lords to tremble. They felt that Yi Fei had lost his mind. What was the difference between going against a divine lord as the Lord of Heaven and committing suicide? Spoiled brat? Hee hee, it's been a long time since someone scolded me like that. Elder Yang, did he just call you an old dog? Yang Hao smiled. Lord God Soap flew into a rage when he heard this. Bastard, it seems like I'll not only cut off your arms and legs, I'll also tear your mouth apart. Get down. You're only qualified to kneel before Yinyang Palace. The Yinyang sky flipping hand appeared again. This time, Lord God Soap had to let Yi Fei know the serious consequences of angering a divine lord. Yi Fei, why aren't you running? Bai Shizhong panicked. Although he didn't like Yi Fei, he didn't want Yi Fei to die like this. Yi Fei smiled faintly. Suddenly, a layer of arrogance appeared on his face. He stood proudly, his body like a sword as he looked coldly at the descending yin-yang sky flipping hand. Senior, why aren't you attacking? A silver token flashed in Yi Fei's hand. A hand suddenly appeared in the void and grabbed the token. Kid Yi, your matters are getting more and more troublesome. The void tore open as a man with an iron mask walked out calmly. Behind him, there was a scarlet cloak. Suddenly, the cloak was flung out by the man. It transformed into a blood cloud that enveloped the surroundings, transforming into a battlefield filled with killing intent. Blood fighting arena. Which Lord of Heaven are you from Deathmatch Palace? Why are you interfering with the matters of Yinyang Palace? Lord God Soap, who had attacked, was alarmed. The blood cloud had suppressed the divine power he used with all his might. In a battle between experts, one could tell the strength of one's opponent from the minute details. Obviously, Sir God Tai Mian was strong, extremely strong. Yang Hao's eyelids twitched. He never expected such an accident to happen just as Yi Fei was about to die. However, he reacted quickly. He immediately took a step forward and said loudly, Yinyang Palace's Yang Hao greets the seniors from Deathmatch Palace. Senior, do you know that this person is a remnant of the Heavenly Palace of Despair? He is also a sworn enemy of Yinyang Palace. Boom! The blood cloud that filled the sky did not retract. Instead, it transformed into a blood dragon that roared angrily. While it forced Lord God Soap back, it also forced Yang Hao and the other Dao lords of Yinyang Palace to vomit blood as they retreated. At that moment, the man with the iron mask stood on the blood dragon and said proudly, Kill Yi Fei? With me around, who dares to kill him? You or you? The iron-masked man pointed with his finger. His fingertips formed two beams of blood-colored light that shot out continuously. Divine Lord Soapware suddenly roared as he anxiously stood in front of Yang Hao. Young master, be careful. This is Deathmatch Palace's sanguine finger. What? Chapter 2348. God Slayer Lord, young master. Yang Hao's injury made the Tao Lords and Half-Step Divine Lords of the Yin Yang Palace give up on attacking Yi Fei and return to Yang Hao's side. They stared at Xue Tu as though they were facing a great enemy. The Half-Step Divine Lord even shouted, "Is the Deathmatch Palace trying to protect the remnants of the Heavenly Palace of Despair and make an enemy out of the Yin Yang Palace? So what if we're enemies? I've long found you Yin Yang people an eyesore." The figures of the Lord of Heaven and the Tao Lords appeared one after another in the void. Their leader was a gorgeous woman with heavy makeup. She was also known as the Poisonous Widow. Behind the Poisonous Widow were the Butcher, Mad Dog, and the Crippled Wolf. They were all fierce people on the slaughter list of the deathmatch arena, especially Mad Dog. After his battle with Yi Fei, he'd broken through and become a Tao Lord from the Lord of Heaven. With so many fierce people from the deathmatch arena arriving together, the entire Lord Pan Hall suddenly became turbulent and filled with saber light and sword shadows. Yang Hao's expression turned ugly. He'd made many plans before coming to the Lord Pan Hall, but those plans hadn't included the Deathmatch Palace's participation. "It seems that I've underestimated you. Have you joined the Deathmatch Palace?" Yang Hao stared at Yi Fei. There was a hint of coldness hidden in his eyes. "I'm sorry to disappoint you. I haven't joined the Deathmatch Palace. Strictly speaking, I don't know these people." Yi Fei sneered and shook his head. Yang Hao was indeed sinister. If he answered his question, it would seem that the Deathmatch Arena had colluded with the Heavenly Palace of Despair. How could Yi Fei fall for that? On the Blood Dragon, Xue Tu also spoke coldly. He told Yang Hao and everyone present why the Deathmatch Arena had interfered. Yi Fei once won 100 consecutive battles in the Lord of Heaven realm in the name of the human sovereign. Logically speaking, he could have received 1,000,000 Xian veins or made 3 conditions. Yi Fei chose the latter. His first condition was for Mad Dog to cripple Wang Xiu. His second condition was for me to destroy the Yen family in the deathmatch arena. What was his third condition? This old man can't remember it clearly. Yi Fei, can you repeat it? A pair of inquisitive eyes appeared under the iron mask. This gaze stunned Yi Fei. His third condition was for Xue Tu to protect him at the appropriate time. How could Xue Tu not remember? There was only one reason for Xue Tu to say this. Xue Tu was looking for an excuse to help him. How could he not seize this opportunity? Yi Fei steeled his heart and pointed. He looked coldly at the injured Sir God in soapy clothes. "Senior, my third condition is for him to die." Yi Fei didn't forget that before Xue Tu made his move, it was this Sir God in soapy clothes who not only wanted to kill him, but also tried to humiliate him. Yi Fei didn't have the strength, so he chose to endure. However, with Xue Tu secretly helping him, Yi Fei decided that he couldn't take it anymore. Since he wanted to make a scene, he would turn it upside down. "Bastard! Not only are you demonic, but you are also deranged. Today, I, as an elder of the Yin Yang Palace, will slay a little devil like you." Sir God in soapy clothes flew into a rage. If not for Yi Fei's soul cauldron and Xue Tu's sudden attack, killing Yi Fei would be no different from killing an ant for a Sir God in soapy clothes. Now that Yi Fei had succeeded, he actually dared to instigate a deathmatch palace Sir God in soapy clothes to kill him. Sir God in soapy clothes couldn't tolerate it any longer. Therefore, at the instant he revealed his identity as an elder, Sir God Soapy charged at Yi Fei with anger and murderous intent that filled the sky. "Old dog, I'll stand here without moving today. Come and kill me if you dare." Yi Fei was like an immovable mountain as he stared coldly at the charging Sir God in soapy clothes. "As you wish." In the void, Xue Tu's cold voice was suddenly heard. The entire void had turned into a massacre battlefield. In the middle of the battlefield, Xue Tu wore a cold iron face and a scarlet cape. He looked like a grim reaper that had walked out of hell. Instantly, he engaged in battle with Sir God in soapy clothes. "Darn it, I am an elder of the Yin Yang Palace. Elder, your deathmatch palace is a bunch of lunatics. Young master, quickly kill that devil with the surname Yi. Sir God in soapy clothes let out an aggrieved and furious roar. Although Yi Fei was right in front of him, not only was he unable to kill him, he even had to risk his life to protect himself. Yang Hao's gaze turned deep at that moment. There was anger and killing intent brewing in his body. Clearly, Yang Hao could tell that the key to alleviating the Deathmatch Palace's killing intent was Yi Fei. As long as Yi Fei was dead, the condition between Yi Fei and the Deathmatch Palace would fail. Kill this person instantly at all costs. Yang Hao finally gave the order. Upon hearing the order, the Dao Lords and half-step Divine Lords of the Yin Yang Palace unleashed their strongest strength. They wanted to kill Yi Fei in the most merciless way possible. The boiling killing intent turned into a hurricane that made many of the Dao Lords of Lord Pan Hall who were watching the battle tremble. Yi Fei's hands were also trembling in excitement. Without the suppression of the Divine Lords, what did he have to fear with the Ghost Emperor Cauldron in his hand? Roar! Suddenly, a crazy roar came from behind Yi Fei. It was Mad Dog. He let out a furious roar and charged towards the half-step Divine Lord first. Mad Dog is indeed crazy. Yi Fei was shocked. Then, he saw that the other fierce people on the torture kill roll had actually passed him and charged forward when Mad Dog attacked. Yi Fei could no longer remain calm. I have no relationship with these people. Why are they taking such a risk to help me? They're not helping you. They're just following orders. Bloody Rose asked us to greet you on her behalf. Of course, there's also this black turtle. The poisonous widow appeared beside Yi Fei with a fragrant wind. While patting the dragon turtle's head, she actually reached out and touched Yi Fei's body. You're really good. Unfortunately, Miss Yen Bing has taken a liking to you. I won't dare to attack you. After carelessly touching Yi Fei's body again, the poison widow was still unsatisfied. She charged forward and blocked the Dao Lords of the Yin Yang Palace. Yi Fei and the Dragon Turtle were stunned. Bloody Rose was Yen Bing's code name in the Deathmatch Palace. This time, the Deathmatch Palace helped him because of Yen Bing. Big Black, it seems like we've done a good thing. Yi Fei also patted the Dragon Turtle's head and sighed. The Dragon Turtle immediately handed over a small wooden token and asked if it could have more food. In the beast mark space, Xiao Chao's face immediately darkened. Yi Fei was also speechless. Just as he was considering whether to throw the Dragon Turtle in and let Xiao Chao beat it up, the entire sky was suddenly filled with a loud roar. Then, a beam of light of blood god shattered the divine soul of the celestial palace. Releasing his consciousness, Yi Fei clearly saw the divine soul of the celestial palace of a divine lord being destroyed by the light of blood. The fate wheel and the heavenly bridge all collapsed. The mountain of Tao and the celestial court also turned into nothingness. Chapter 2349. Li Moran, Elder Yang is dead. The Dao Lords of Yin Yang Palace stared blankly at the corpse that had fallen from the sky. It was the corpse of a Divine Lord and an Elder of Yin Yang Palace. Divine Lord Soapy Clothes had repeatedly emphasized his status as an elder to intimidate the deathmatch arena, but in the end, he had died. His intimidation was a joke in Xue Tu's eyes. This crazy man was the strongest and bloodiest Divine Lord in the deathmatch arena. At this time, his gaze passed over the corpse beneath his feet and landed on the half-step Divine Lord Old Man. The old man's hairs stood on end, as if he were a rabbit that had seen a wolf. He simply didn't dare to attack this mad dog. Instead, it was like a mad dog had gone berserk, its fists constantly smashing into the old man's face and body. This half-step Divine Lord Old Man screamed miserably, his face swollen and his bones broken as he tumbled down from the skies, tumbling in front of Yang Hao. Mad Dog was still going crazy, as if he would fall into complete madness once the battle started. Even the other murderers on the torture list didn't dare to approach Mad Dog. At this moment, Shue Tu walked over and gently pressed a hand on Mad Dog's shoulder. Mad Dog, it's all over. I know, but I just couldn't control myself. I was too weak. My heart was too crazy. The Mad Dog trembled and retreated behind Sanguine Butcher. Only his eyes were still red. The Downlords of the Yin Yang Palace were all shocked. A hint of puzzlement flashed through Yi Fei's eyes. There seems to be something wrong with the Mad Dog's bloodline. He looked thoughtful, then glanced at Yang Hao. Now, do you still plan to capture me? These words made Yang Hao's gloomy face turn ashen. When he came to Lord Pan Hall, he hadn't expected to suffer such a crushing defeat. Not only had he failed to capture Yi Fei, but he had also lost several Dao Lords and a Divine Lord. Today is the greatest humiliation of my life. Yi Fei, you indeed have guts. You actually dared to use Deathmatch Palace to kill a Divine Lord of mine. Unfortunately, you only have 3 chances with the Death Battle Palace. You've already used up all 3 chances. If I kill you now, the seniors of the Death Battle Palace won't interfere, right? Boom! A terrifying bloodline fluctuation emerged from Yang Hao's body. Within the extreme Yin, there was also extreme Yang. Bai Yanran, the genius of spirit attachment, immediately exclaimed, 9th grade bloodline, Yin Yang divine blood. That's right, it's the Yin Yang godly blood. Today, I'll use this bloodline to kill you. Yang Hao was seething with rage. In order to hunt down the Lord of Heaven, a divine lord had actually died. This was not only a disgrace to him, but also a disgrace to the entire Yin Yang Palace. 9th rank? Was that a big deal? Do you really think you're the only one who has it? Yi Fei sneered. Suddenly, a blood-red flame ignited on his body. The light was so resplendent and dazzling. The Dao Lords of the Yin Yang Palace all widened their eyes in shock. The Dao Lords of Lord Pan Hall were like Bai Shizhong. Their mouths were agape as though they had seen a ghost. They still remembered that when Yi Fei first entered Lord Pan Hall for the test, he didn't even have a bloodline. How long had it been since then? Yi Fei's bloodline had actually reached 9th grade bloodline. 9th grade? Damn it! How can your bloodline be 9th grade? Yang Hao exhaled loudly. He had shown his 9th grade bloodline to intimidate Yi Fei and also to humiliate Yi Fei. He wanted to redeem the face of the Divine Lord who had died in battle. In the end, reality slapped Yang Hao hard in the face. Yi Fei's bloodline was also 9th grade bloodline. Yang Hao couldn't tolerate this at all. Yi Fei, you will die in my hands today. Yang Hao roared. Behind him, Yin Yang Qi transformed into a divine armor that covered his body. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you anytime. Yi Fei sneered. He suddenly stepped onto the Soul Cauldron and entered the Ghost Gate. At the same time, Xiao Chao quickly repaired the runes on the dark steel heavy sword in the beast mark space and threw it out again. The expression of the Dao Lord of Yin Yang Palace changed drastically. He grabbed Yang Hao in a panic and advised, "Young master, you can't fight him. This fiend is as crazy as a mad dog. He even has the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. It's unwise to fight him." "That's right, young master. Let's immediately send a message back to the Yin Yang Palace and ask Renzu to come and subdue this demon." The half-step Divine Lord Elder also tried to persuade Yang Hao. After all, Yang Hao had 9th grade Yin Yang bloodline and was highly valued by the Yin Yang Palace. If Yang Hao suddenly died like Elder Yang, they would all be punished by death. Bastard, is Elder Yang going to die for nothing? Are we just going to let this bastard from the heavenly palace of despair go? Yang Hao was furious. Instead of retreating, he strode forward. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded from the void. "Yi Fei, Yang Hao said that you're a bastard from the heavenly palace of despair. Is it true? I hope you can answer honestly, because this will determine whether the Lord Pan Palace will treat you as a friend or foe." A voice suddenly sounded from the void. It was Lord Pan's voice. After a long silence, Lord Pan finally walked out. He didn't hide his divine lord aura at all. Another divine lord had appeared on the battlefield. Xue Tu's eyes narrowed slightly. Yi Fei, on the other hand, felt relieved. Although he was very unhappy with Lord Pan for not saving him, Lord Pan had still expressed his attitude at the last moment. Senior Pan King, I can swear that I'm not a bastard from the heavenly palace of despair. But intelligence says that you've learned the golden body of despair. Lord Pan didn't give up. Killing intent suddenly appeared in the void. It enveloped Yi Fei. Yi Fei wasn't afraid. He said coldly, I'm a rogue cultivator. As long as it's a mystique, I'll learn it. I don't care about the heavenly palace or the earth palace. Does it mean that I'm the young master of the Yin-Yang Palace, just because I've learned the martial arts of the Yin-Yang Palace? The killing intent disappeared. Lord Pan didn't say anything. He turned around and hid in the void again. However, he had used his attitude to prove Yi Fei's innocence. Xue Tu's eyes lit up under his iron mask. He nodded secretly. This Lord Pan doesn't show off. It seems like he's not someone to be underestimated. Haha, Brother Pan King, please wait. This kid has a sharp tongue. I can tell that he's dishonest. The bastard from the heavenly palace of despair is a matter of great importance. We can't let our guard down just because of what he said. Just as Lord Pan turned around, a loud laugh came from the sky. It came from a handsome middle-aged man in a divine robe. He was extraordinarily handsome and exuded the might of a divine lord. He sealed the entire void by himself and even suppressed Lord Pan and Xue Tu together. Lord Pan's expression turned cold. Xue Tu's body surged with killing intent. Palace of the Divine King, Li Moran. You also want to interfere in this matter? Haha, Brother Xue Tu, we've been good brothers for many years. Now that you've met an old friend, why don't you dare to show your true face? Oh right, I almost forgot. Your face was cut off long ago. You don't have a face anymore. What a pity, what a pity! Li Moran spoke cheerfully, but his words were filled with contempt and mockery. Yi Fei could clearly feel a killing intent from Xue Tu that was about to explode. At this time, Lord Pan silently appeared beside Xue Tuesday. He said indifferently, able to endure, able to fight. I wonder why an elder from the Divine King Palace has come here? Nothing else. Firstly, I want to investigate whether or not a spy from the Heavenly Palace of Despair has infiltrated my city of Divine King. Secondly, I want to borrow the Ghost Emperor Furnace from this child. Chapter 2350. Conditions. Hearing Li Moran's words, Yi Fei smiled bitterly. He understood that Li Moran's pursuit of the remnants of the Heavenly Palace of Despair was fake. His true goal was to seize the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. It was only then that Yi Fei realized that the Ghost Emperor Cauldron in his hand was a hot potato. The family Wang, the Li family, the Tyrant's Blade School, the Yin-Yang Palace, and even Li Moran had come to fight for it under the banner of the Palace of the God King. Both Pan Wang and Xue Tu's expressions became unsightly. Originally, Pan Wang had already used a method to forcefully wash away the suspicion of Yi Fei being a remnant of the Heavenly Palace of Despair. Because of Yanbing, the deathmatch arena would also do its best to prove Yi Fei's innocence. However, Li Moran's interference had changed the situation. After all, the Palace of the God King was the true overlord of the city of the God King. If the Palace of the God King didn't admit Yi Fei's innocence, then even if Yi Fei had the support of the Lord Pan Hall and the deathmatch arena, he still wouldn't be able to clear his name. This also gave Yang Hao another chance to target Yi Fei. Even though Li Moran had always addressed Xue Tu as an old friend, someone as smart as Yang Hao could tell that Li Moran was just being polite on the surface. The Real Li Moran and Xue Tu might have been enemies in the past. When he thought of this, Yang Hao no longer had the energy to fight with Yi Fei. He hurriedly cupped his fists and introduced himself. I am Yang Hao from the Yin-Yang Palace. Greetings, Uncle Master Li. If Uncle Master Li is here to search for the Sky Palace of Despair's remnants, then it's a coincidence that the deathmatch arena is protecting them. Yang Hao looked at Yi Fei viciously. Yi Fei's body was also filled with rage and killing intent. Yang Hao, this is a grudge between you and me. Why do you have to involve the life and death arena? The reason he was able to escape danger this time was all thanks to the great efforts of the life and death arena. How could he allow the life and death arena to be drawn into the vortex of the heavenly palace of despair? Yang Hao's methods completely aroused Yi Fei's killing intent. But before he could do anything, a hand suddenly pressed down on his shoulder. It was Xue Tu's hand. Xue Tu said coldly, "It's not really related. I helped you before because of the death match and promised you 3 things. I'm helping you now because you helped me find a good disciple. The Yin Yang Palace can deal with you, but only if they are below the Tao Lord level. If anyone in the City of God Kings dares to attack you, then they will be making an enemy out of me, Xue Tu, and the deathmatch arena." Boom! Xue Tu's body suddenly emitted a boiling murderous aura. This murderous aura was faintly directed at Li Moran. But Li Moran didn't seem to notice it. He walked leisurely towards the murderous aura. "Xue Tu, I haven't seen you in years. Your personality hasn't changed at all. But since we are friends, I'll give this person a chance to prove his innocence. Yi Fei, let me have a look at your cauldron." Li Moran's tone was cold. Yang Hao was also gloating. What he feared the most was the Ghost Emperor cauldron in Yi Fei's hands. Without this cauldron, Yi Fei definitely wouldn't be able to escape his hunt. Yi Fei's expression changed. Xue Tu's eyes were cold and sharp. "Li Moran, are you going to ignore my words?" "Not at all. I'm just testing. I suspect that this cauldron is a treasure of the remnants of the heavenly palace of despair, so I want to check it personally. If there's no problem with this cauldron, I'll definitely return it to you. If there's a problem, then it's hard to say who the owner of this cauldron is." Li Moran's handsome expression revealed a trace of a calm smile. This smile left by Shizhong and by Yanran dumbfounded. Yi Fei was even more dumbfounded. He had seen many shameless people, but it was rare to see someone as shameless as Li Moran. He was obviously trying to steal the cauldron, but Li Moran had linked it to the heavenly palace of despair. Unfortunately, the gap between him and a godly lord was too great. Even with the Ghost Emperor cauldron, he couldn't make up for it. At the same time, Li Moran's words carried a hidden threat. If he was tactful and handed over the Ghost Emperor cauldron for Li Moran to check, then Li Moran would use the name of the Palace of the Deities to prove his innocence. If he didn't know what was good for him and refused to hand over the Ghost Emperor cauldron, then Li Moran could slander him as a remnant of the heavenly palace of despair. Moreover, he would have no place in the city of the deities. Is this how an elder of the palace of the deities does things? He inverts right and wrong. He just opens his mouth. But how can I refuse? Yi Fei was very depressed. It was one thing to understand Li Moran's intentions, but it was extremely difficult to refuse. Thinking of this, Yi Fei subconsciously looked at Xue Tu and Pan Wang. Xue Tu shook his head helplessly, but secretly sent a voice transmission to remind him. "Yi Fei, the current you still doesn't have the ability to contend against the palace of the deities. Li Moran's purpose here is not for the cauldron, but for the ancient emperor's inheritance in the cauldron. As for whether you hand it over or not, it's all up to you. If you want to leave, I can help you fight your way out." This was Xue Tu's greatest support for Yi Fei on account of Yan Bing. "Li Moran, I can lend you the cauldron, but if there's nothing in it that you want, I hope that you can return it to little friend Yi." Suddenly, Pan Wang spoke. His expression was very calm, but his eyes flickered with an unfathomable light. He seemed to be examining and testing Yi Fei. Yi Fei was depressed to find that he couldn't tell what Pan Wang's true thoughts were. However, Xue Tu's reminder and Pan Wang's attitude made him understand that just Xue Tu and Pan Wang alone couldn't contend against the palace of the deities. Either he could leave with the cauldron, or he could lend it to Li Moran for a look and gain a foothold in the city of the deities. Thinking of this, Yi Fei suddenly sighed. How could he leave the city of the deities without seeing Zhao Yu? I can lend you the Ghost Emperor cauldron for a look. But I have a condition. Yi Fei raised his head and finally faced Li Moran. Li Moran's eyes were very cold. He was like a deity king, high and mighty and otherworldly. He asked indifferently, "What condition do you want?" "It's a very simple condition. I want to see Zhao Yu." Yi Fei calmed himself down and said in a low voice. Many people rolled their eyes when they heard this. He actually wants to see Zhao Yu. Is this guy really crazy or is he faking it? Most importantly, he actually dares to make such a shameless request in front of my sister. Bai Shizhong had the urge to chop someone up again. Bai Yanran also looked at Yi Fei in confusion. Even Pan Wang and Xue Tu were speechless when they heard this. Even if a fair lady was a gentleman's mate, Yi Fei's request was too direct. Yang Hao even laughed disdainfully on the spot. You're really a toad lusting after a swan's meat. If Zhao Yu takes a fancy to you, I, Yang Hao, will recognize you as my father from now on. Even if I'm a toad, I might really be able to eat it. Yi Fei smiled casually, not caring at all about Yang Hao's ridicule. He only looked at Li Moran and said, Elderly, do you agree to my condition? You really want to see Zhao Yu? Li Moran's handsome expression also revealed a trace of strangeness. I can agree. Now, bring the cauldron and let me have a look. Chapter 23:51 Ichthyosaur Transformation Boom. The probing of the consciousness of a divine lord had thoroughly enraged the cauldron spirit within the Ghost Emperor cauldron. The entire Ghost Emperor cauldron radiated an intense dim light as though it was the mouth of a demon god. It completely devoured Li Moran's consciousness. Li Moran was not alarmed. Instead, he was delighted. He laughed heartily as a demonic vertical eye appeared on his forehead. That's the eye of demon god. Although Li Moran is an elder of the God King's palace, he harbors evil intentions. In his early years, he had also obtained the inheritance of the heavenly ghoul race in the underground world. Xue Tu's voice faintly entered Yi Fei's ears. Faintly, Xue Tu's voice contained a trace of killing intent that he was trying his best to suppress. This made Yi Fei suspect that Xue Tu and Li Moran had some unresolvable secret. Was it true that Xue Tu supported him because of Yanbing? How dare a mere cauldron spirit try to stop me from prying? Since that's the case, you shall perish. Li Moran's eye of demon god suddenly turned sinister. He actually destroyed the cauldron spirit of the Ghost Emperor cauldron right in front of Yi Fei with his powerful cultivation realm. An intense fury immediately emerged in Yi Fei's heart. Although this Li Moran claimed that he wanted to borrow the Ghost Emperor cauldron, he was, in fact, treating the Ghost Emperor cauldron as his possession. However, Yi Fei did not stop Li Moran's action. Firstly, his cultivation realm was too low. He was no match for a divine lord like Li Moran. Secondly, he knew that the cauldron spirit of the Ghost Emperor cauldron was unkillable. Otherwise, the Ghost Emperor wouldn't have asked him to protect the cauldron and search for the true heavenly ghoul body. If my guess is correct, this cauldron spirit is perhaps the true inheritance of the heavenly ghoul race. I wonder if this cauldron spirit can withstand the prying of Li Moran's eye of demon god? Yi Fei's eyes stared at Li Moran's action with slight nervousness. If Li Moran discovered something, the Ghost Emperor cauldron might no longer belong to him. Boom! Li Moran's eye of the demon god was still in effect. At the same time, he struck out continuously. What he used was not the martial arts of the palace of the Divine King, but another seal of the Heavenly Ghoul clan. That is the Ghost Deity Seal, the ultimate technique of the royal family of the Heavenly Ghoul clan. Unfortunately, it fell into the hands of a villain like Li Moran. Shwe-Tu snorted coldly. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at the strange ghost deity seal, which was slowly fusing into the ghost deity cauldron. Stimulated by the ghost god seal, the entire ghost emperor cauldron suddenly emitted a strong light, and the mysterious ghost gate appeared again. Yi Fei was surprised to find that the ghost god seal could also activate the ghost god cauldron, but unfortunately, Li Moran could only activate it. That was all. Without the 9 cauldron sky suppressing art, the Ghost Emperor cauldron would continuously absorb the bloodline power of the user until the user's bloodline power was completely drained. Li Moran also noticed this. His expression changed, but he did not stop. Instead, he roared and suddenly controlled the Ghost Emperor cauldron to smash Shwe-Tuesday. Shwe-Tu, we have not seen each other for too long. Let me see if you have improved. Shwe-Tu did not speak, but his eyes under the iron mask suddenly emitted a cold, murderous intent. Then, a fist light formed into a furious dragon, roaring and smashing towards Li Moran's Ghost Emperor cauldron. Li Moran let out a long roar. Suddenly, he imitated Yi Fei. He stepped on the soul cauldron, entered the ghost gate, and smashed the blood dragon with incomparable force. Then, he rushed toward Shwe-Tu's body. Sect Master! The poisonous widow, Mad Dog and the others were shocked. After all, they had seen with their own eyes how Yi Fei controlled the Ghost Emperor cauldron and easily killed a Tao Lord. At this time, the one controlling the Ghost Emperor cauldron was not a minor lord of heaven like Yi Fei, but a divine lord like Li Moran. How could they not be nervous? Even Pan Wang narrowed his eyes. Shwe-Tu roared to the sky like a divine dragon. Endless fist light blasted out from his hands, forming hundreds of blood dragons that surrounded the Ghost Emperor cauldron and attacked crazily. Boom, 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 boom. Continuous explosions were heard. The Ghost Emperor cauldron's body was dented by the blood dragons. The ghost gate on the cauldron shook violently and finally shattered. Shwe-Tu withdrew his fist and sneered. We haven't seen each other for many years. My strength is just SOSO. Shwe-Tu made a rare joke. However, Li Moran did not smile. His face became extremely gloomy. Suddenly, he left the Ghost Emperor cauldron and slammed his palm on the cauldron. You are the Ghost Emperor's possession. How can you be so useless? What use do I have for you? Dong. The Ghost Emperor cauldron wailed. Li Moran's palm had created a deep crack. Yi Fei was shocked. Shwe-Tu could only make a dent in the Ghost Emperor cauldron, but Li Moran could crack it. If he was given time, would he be able to completely destroy the Ghost Emperor cauldron? Shwe-Tu's eyes became more serious. The hundreds of blood dragons around him were still glaring at him with their scarlet eyes. Li Moran also smiled and looked at Shwe-Tuesday. The scene became even more oppressive than the confrontation between Yi Fei and Yang Hao. This was a silent battle between two divine lords. Under the influence of the two's auras, the air in the entire Lord Pan Palace seemed to have completely frozen. Even the Tao Lords found it difficult to breathe. Yi Fei, Yang Hao, Bai Shizong, and Bai Yanran, the juniors, flushed instantly. They felt a pressure in their bodies that was about to explode. This is the Lord Pan Palace after all. Lord Shwe, elderly, please give this old man some face. Pan Wang's figure suddenly appeared between the two divine lords. The invisible pressure in the surroundings seemed to disperse with the wind, vanishing. Shock flashed through Shwe-Tu's cold eyes. Li Moran's smile also became slightly stiff. They all looked at Lord Pan in surprise, the divine lord of the Lord Pan Palace who didn't show his strength. After that, Li Moran withdrew the imposing aura in his entire body, and he recovered his lofty and indifferent expression once more. He said with a smile, since King Pan has spoken, then I naturally have to give him face. Let's end the matter today. Unfortunately, this cauldron has been destroyed, Li Moran sighed. He didn't look at the Ghost Emperor cauldron anymore. He turned around and walked towards the void, ready to leave. Yi Fei was completely furious. That old fogey had stolen his cauldron to study it, and he had even created a crack in it. And now, he was thinking of leaving just like that? Hold on, Senior. Have you forgotten something? Yi Fei strode forward and stopped Limoran, the Divine Lord. Shui Tu and Lord Pan's expressions became strange. Limoran was also stunned. A trace of mockery appeared in his indifferent expression. Young man, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a fish living in a ditch. When it saw a divine dragon flying in the sky, it thought that if it chased after the divine dragon, it might also become a divine dragon one day. So it chased after the divine dragon and swam out of the ditch, then into a pond, then into a stream, and then into a river. But in the end, when the fish finally entered the sea after countless hardships, it realized that it still hadn't become a divine dragon. Its environment had changed, but it was still an insignificant fish. It couldn't transform into a dragon. It couldn't even survive in the sea. Young man, do you understand anything from this story? Limoran's tone was gentle, like an elder giving advice to a junior. But everyone present could hear the insult in his tone. In Limoran's eyes, Yi Fei was just a small fry who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Yang Hao mocked disdainfully, this toad is really crazy. With his status, he wants to have designs on Zhaoyu. Is he even worthy? Hearing this, the Dao lords of the Yin-Yang Palace laughed wantonly. However, Yi Fei didn't seem to hear their laughter. He had a smile on his face that was unique to honest people. He nodded honestly and said, Senior, I understand what you mean. The reason isn't because of the divine dragon, but because of that fish. Chapter 23:52. A startling discovery. Yi Fei's tone was filled with sincerity. However, his sincerity caused the expressions of many people present to change drastically. Limoran's gaze suddenly turned gloomy as he sized up Yi Fei. Then, without saying anything more, he let out a cold humph and left in a huff. Given his status, he disdained to bicker with a mere lord of heaven. If Yi Fei hadn't obtained the Ghost Emperor cauldron and piqued his interest, Yi Fei wouldn't even be qualified to stand before him. However, Limoran's attitude towards Yang Hao was completely different. Nephew Yang is young and promising. If you have the time, you should visit my Godking's palace. If it's you, you might have a chance. Limoran didn't mention what kind of chance it was. Yang Hao was overwhelmed by this unexpected favor. He didn't even bother to settle the score with Yi Fei. Yang Hao immediately nodded and said, How can this junior disobey Martial Uncle's order? Yimo, count yourself lucky that Martial Uncle is here to help you. Yang Hao glanced at the Ghost Emperor cauldron with fear. He still wasn't confident that he could defeat Yi Fei. In the end, he could only leave with Limoran with his men. Of course, after this incident, Yi Fei's identity had been completely cleared. With the unanimous affirmation of Lord Pan Palace, Deathmatch Palace, and Godking's Palace, Yin-Yang Palace wouldn't be able to use the identity of a surviving member of the Heavenly Palace of Despair against Yi Fei again. This was also Yi Fei's only gain from this conflict. However, when Yi Fei saw that Limoran had shattered the cauldron spirit and cracked the Ghost Emperor cauldron, his heart ached again. The Ghost Emperor cauldron was his trump card. Thankfully, this cauldron is the same as my Taiji sword cauldron. It's also a soul cauldron. Since it can condense a soul cauldron, it should also be able to repair a soul cauldron. Yi Fei picked up the Ghost Emperor cauldron with a pained look. When Bai Shizhong saw this, he thought that Yi Fei was regretting not being able to meet Zhaoyu. He was instantly filled with jealousy and viciously reminded by Yanran, Yanran, be careful. Yi Fei is a bit of a playboy. Be careful, don't be fooled by him. Brother, what does him being a playboy have to do with me? Besides, Yi Fei is not that kind of person. Bai Yanran subconsciously glanced at Yi Fei. Unfortunately, Yi Fei did not notice Bai Yanran's gaze. After the matter was resolved, the first thing Yi Fei did was to carry the Ghost Emperor cauldron and run back to his room in Lord Pan Hall. The dragon turtle chose to stay behind and continue to act cute in front of Bai Yanran while freeloading on food and drink. At the same time, the conflict at Lord Pan Hall spread throughout the entire city of divine monarchs at the fastest speed possible, causing countless factions to be shocked. After all, not only had 4 divine lords appeared this time, but a divine lord from the Yin-Yang Palace had also died on the spot. In particular, the Iron Mask Court Master of the Arena of Death was actually Shui Tuesday. This caused an uproar among many factions in the city of divine monarchs. Of course, what shocked these factions the most was that Shui Tu had announced that anyone above the Dao Lord realm who dared to touch Yi Fei would be an enemy of Shui Tu and the Arena of Death. This made the upper echelons of family Wang, who had been preparing to take revenge after hearing the news of Wang Yan's death, feel as though a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads. This YMO is actually able to obtain the support of Shui Tuesday. Why is that? A family Wang elder roared angrily. This was a half-step divine lord elder. There were 3 other family Wang elders at the same level. This time, they wanted to join forces to kill Yi Fei and seize the Ghost Emperor cauldron. However, Shui Tu's warning forced them to give up on this idea. After all, the Ghost Emperor cauldron was too powerful. Ordinary Dao Lords simply couldn't do anything to Yi Fei. However, half-step divine lords like them didn't dare act rashly because of Shui Tu's warning. Damn it! Are we just going to let Yi Mo do whatever he wants? A family Wang elder smashed the table on the spot. Wang Yan and Wang Xiu were his direct descendant. Of course not. Although Yi Fei has Shui Tu as his backer, family Wang has the Godly King Palace and the Yin-Yang Palace. Yi Fei has offended 2 overlords at once. I don't believe that he can still have a foothold in the city of God Kings. Another elder stood up. In the end, the elders of family Wang unanimously decided to send people to visit Li Moran and Yang Hao with expensive gifts. After all, Yang Hao and Yi Fei were mortal enemies. Shui Tu and Li Moran also had a blood feud. Family Wang definitely wouldn't let Yi Fei grow up step by step. Du Chong was the same. Li Moran's sudden appearance this time was entirely Du Chong's plan. He first used the Yin-Yang Palace to fight Yi Fei to the death. Then, he asked his master, Li Moran, to step in and reap the benefit. Not only would he kill Yi Fei, but he would also take Yi Fei's Ghost Emperor cauldron. However, due to the interference of the 2 divine lords, Pan Wang and Shui Tu, Li Moran finally realized that the Ghost Emperor cauldron wasn't what he wanted and chose to give up. He didn't dare to push Yi Fei too far. This made Du Chong so angry that he almost vomited blood. Master, why? Even if you can't kill Yi Fei, you can still take the Ghost Emperor cauldron back. Do you know how great a price I paid to obtain the inheritance of the heavenly ghoul race? Du Chong was so agitated that he couldn't control his voice. His voice became shrill again. Li Moran couldn't help but frown. However, Du Chong was his most valued disciple. He was very similar to him in terms of personality and talent. Li Moran also sympathized with Du Chong's experience. He couldn't help but comfort him. Chonger, it's actually good that you don't have it. Instead, your 6 senses are pure and you can devote yourself to cultivation. It would have been better if he didn't mention this. Hearing this, 2 streams of blood flowed from Du Chong's eyes. Shocking hatred appeared on his body. Du Chong hated the most now, not Yi Fei but the dead Wang Xiu. After all, it was still bearable if his balls were broken. However, Wang Xiu was so perverted that he cut off his root. Wang Xiu's original intention was to provoke Du Chong into a frenzy for revenge. However, this caused Du Chong to suffer. After all, once the beheading evil technique was used, it could only take over the body's original owner, including all the body's flaws. However, Wang Xiu's flaw was fatal. It was so fatal that every time Du Chong thought of it, hatred would seep into his bones. Yimo, just you wait. Everything that I, Du Chong, have encountered will be returned to you tenfold, no, 100-fold. Du Chong wiped away his bloody tears and continued to bitterly cultivate the Heaven Ghoul race's mystique with a heart full of resentment. However, Du Chong had been feeling very puzzled recently. With his intelligence, cultivating any mystique was incomparably fast. However, he was unable to successfully cultivate this Heaven Ghoul mystique. He wanted to give it to Li Moran for guidance, but Du Chong was afraid that Li Moran would take it away and not return it to him. This made Du Chong feel very conflicted. Yi Fei also didn't know that the fake scroll he casually concocted was actually taken as the real one by Du Chong. Du Chong was wholeheartedly focused on cultivating. The Ghost Emperor Cauldron was indeed worthy of being the sole cauldron condensed by the Ghost Emperor. Even though it was already damaged, even though Li Moran had destroyed its cauldron spirit, Yi Fei clearly sensed that the broken cauldron spirit of the Ghost Emperor Cauldron had actually recovered after cultivating the 9 cauldron heaven suppression technique for a month. Even the broken cauldron was showing signs of being repaired. Chapter 23:53 Golden Body of Despair. As soon as he thought of it, Yi Fei began to cultivate crazily, which made Xiao Qiao very depressed. Dragon Turtle went out to eat and drink, but Xiao Qiao couldn't go out himself. Xiao Qiao secretly took out the Dragon Turtle's little black tile, and marked the Dragon Turtle's name on it. Xiao Qiao also ran to sleep. Yi Fei and Xiao Qiao were cultivating leisurely, but they didn't know that the whole city of Divine Kings was in an uproar because of the appearance of the Ghost Emperor tripod. Of course, there was no wind without a foundation. The news of the Ghost Emperor tripod was spread by Yang Hao. This time, the Yin-Yang Palace lost a Divine Emperor to deal with Yi Fei. Yang Hao couldn't take revenge on Xue Tu, so he could only vent his anger on Yi Fei. Yang Hao's original intention was to arouse the greed of the families and sects in the city of Divine Kings for the Ghost Emperor tripod, so that they could join forces to deal with Yi Fei again. However, to Yang Hao's disappointment, after hearing the news from Xue Tu, no family or sect dared to attack Yi Fei openly. Somehow, the news that Yi Fei possessed a 9th-grade bloodline had spread. Now, not to mention that no one dared to make a move on the surface, even those who were secretly eyeing the Ghost Emperor Cauldron gradually gave up the idea. The master of the Tyrant Blade Master, who used to oppose Yi Fei, came to Lord Pan Palace in person to apologize to Yi Fei. No one knew better than the master of the Tyrant Blade Master what a 9th-class bloodline meant. It was a super genius that could only be cultivated by an overlord-level force. Now, such a genius came from the common people. Anyone with half a brain would know that Yi Fei was definitely not an ordinary person. Sooner or later, an overlord-level force would come to recruit Yi Fei. If they didn't repair the relationship now, they wouldn't have the chance in the future. Apart from the patriarch of the tyrannical saber faction, the Li clan, where Li Chong was from, also secretly came to apologize. However, just like the patriarch of the tyrannical saber faction, Yi Fei was busy with his cultivation and did not have the time to pay attention to them. In the end, the Dragon Turtle had to step in and accept the gifts from the 2 factions on behalf of Yi Fei. This made the Tyrant Blade Sect Master and the Li family very nervous. She wondered if she should wait for Yi Fei to come out of seclusion before giving him another gift. Family Wang, on the other hand, was in great fear. Because of Wang Xiu, Du Chong hated Family Wang as well. The people who had sent gifts couldn't even enter the Divine King Palace. Yang Hao obviously did not want to get on Du Chong's bad side. He also decisively severed all ties with Family Wang. Only then did the Family Wang discover in fright that they had done so much for the God King's Palace and the Yin-Yang Palace. Even their patriarch had unfortunately died in battle. In the end, Not only were they unable to receive any consolation or compensation, they were even treated as obstacles and kicked away. If we had known this would happen, we wouldn't have made an enemy out of Demon Yi. The 4 elders of family Wang were full of regret. Especially when the news that Yi Fei had a 9th-grade bloodline spread, the entire family Wang felt as if the sky had collapsed. Unfortunately, all this did not affect Yi Fei's determination to restore the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Li Moran would never have thought that by deliberately destroying the Ghost Emperor Cauldron, I would inadvertently discover its greatest secret. The Ghost Emperor Cauldron can restore itself. As long as my realm is high enough, I will be able to restore this cauldron to its peak state sooner or later. At that time, the Ghost Emperor Cauldron would be a real ancient imperial weapon, more precious than Renzu's weapon. Unfortunately, the ideal was beautiful, but the reality was always cruel. Although Yi Fei had discovered that the Ghost Emperor Cauldron had the ability to restore itself, it was still too difficult to restore the Ghost Emperor Cauldron to its original state. At present, Yi Fei was only at the middle stage of the Lord of Heaven realm. He could only repair the cracks and dents that appeared in the Ghost Emperor Cauldron during the battle by relying on his frantic cultivation. However, he could not repair the original damage of the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. However, after this period of cultivation, Yi Fei's 9 Cauldron Heaven suppressing technique had made rapid progress. At this time, the number of Taiji sword cauldrons that he could condense had increased from 1 to 2. Not only did the power of the Taiji sword cauldron increase, but it also became easier to control the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Therefore, after completely restoring the cauldron spirit of the Ghost Emperor Cauldron, Yi Fei also ended his cultivation. He stretched his body and walked out of his room. He saw a beautiful figure waiting outside his room. Who else could it be other than Bai Yanran? During this period of time, Bai Yanran had also mastered the 9 Cauldron Heaven suppressing technique. Her entire temperament had changed to a certain extent. Without a doubt, Bai Yanran had become stronger. Yi Fei's eyes lit up when he saw her in a white palace dress. However, when he saw the dragon turtle behind Bai Yanran, who had become as fat as a ball again, Yi Fei felt very distressed. How long has it been? Big Black, you've become fatter again. Bai Yanran felt very guilty. She did not expect the dragon turtle to have such a big appetite. It had eaten all the mystical stones, mystical veins, and medicinal pellets in her space belt. If Yi Fei still did not come out, Bai Yanran would have wanted to force her way in and return the dragon turtle to Yi Fei. However, Bai Yanran did not just wait outside to return the dragon turtle. She took out an item from her space belt and said, "Yi Fei, the patriarch asked me to give this to you." She threw a rectangular iron box over, blinked her eyes, turned around, and left. Pan Wang had instructed that she could only give this item to Yi Fei. She was not to ask about it, let alone look at it. This made Bai Yanran very curious, but it was not appropriate for her to ask too much. Holding the iron box, Yi Fei was even more confused. Pan Wang was cold and indifferent. It was Pan Wang who appeared and forced Li Moran to retreat when Yi Fei was at his most dangerous. Pan Wang was passionate, but Pan Wang rarely spoke to Yi Fei. "I wonder what's in this iron box?" Yi Fei returned to the room curiously, wanting to see what was in the iron box. At this time, a black beak immediately came over, looking very curious. Yi Fei's face darkened immediately. He scolded, "Xiao Qiao, drag it in and beat it." With a whoosh, a vine whip flew out, wrapped around the dragon turtle's tail, and dragged it into the beast mark space. Only then did Yi Fei relax and open the iron box. Then, he was stunned. He saw that there were 2 golden pages in the iron box. It was not only the golden body of despair, but also the cultivation technique of the Tao Lord realm. Even the cultivation technique of the Divine Lord realm was inside. Yi Fei was instantly stunned. He didn't think that he would be able to obtain the thing he wanted the most so easily. Moreover, Pan Wang didn't make any requests. He only used a silent method to bestow this precious cultivation technique to him. Forget it. No matter what Pan Wang is thinking, it's a free gift anyway. It's a waste not to take it. But before that, let's check its authenticity first. Yi Fei could not completely trust Pan Wang and Rizu. In the void, Bai Suifeng also looked at Pan Wang in confusion. Ancestor, you gave the golden body of despair to Yi Fei so easily? He has a 9th grade bloodline and Rizu's support. Why didn't you let him join the heavenly palace of despair? Chapter 23:54. The dragon turtle enters the arena. Bai Suifeng was a little hesitant. Old ancestor, aren't you afraid that Yi Fei will turn against us after he becomes stronger? Just like that traitor back then. Of course I'm afraid. That's why this is my real test for him. If he can stay true to himself, he will be the hope of reviving the heavenly palace of despair. If he loses himself in power, then we don't have to do anything. That traitor who wants the golden body of despair will fight Yi Fei to the death. At this point, Lord Pan's eyes suddenly dimmed. But if that's the case, the 1,000-year foundation of the Lord Pan Palace will be completely destroyed. Hearing this, Bai Suifeng sighed helplessly. There was a hint of worry in his eyes. Since Lord Pan had decided to let Yi Fei go, he naturally had no reason to recruit Yi Fei into the Lord Pan Palace. It's all this kid's fault. His bloodline is too strong. Otherwise, I would have taken the opportunity to recruit him into the Lord Pan Palace and make him my son-in-law. Bai Suifeng felt regretful. Yi Fei, who was cultivating, felt an inexplicable chill. He quickly looked into the beast mark space and saw the dragon turtle being slapped around by Xiao Chao. It didn't look like it was cursing him. Yi Fei was even more confused. Forget it. It's more important to comprehend the golden body of despair. Otherwise, if Lord Pan goes back on his words, it'll be a big loss. After inspecting it, Yi Fei discovered that the golden body of despair was actually real. It was just that some sort of self-destruction restriction had been placed on the pages. Once the time was up, these pages would be destroyed and he wouldn't be able to comprehend it anymore. Yi Fei could only focus on comprehending it. For this, he didn't hesitate to activate his undying sword soul to continuously increase his comprehension. However, the golden body of despair of the Tao Lord and Divine Lord scrolls were indeed more difficult and complete than the Lord Heaven scroll. Yi Fei spent a whole month to completely comprehend these two cultivation techniques. However, in order to cultivate the golden body of despair of the Tao Lord realm, the number of profound veins required was simply too terrifying. It required at least 1,000,000 profound veins. Seeing this number of profound veins, Yi Fei almost vomited blood on the spot. He was incomparably regretful that he had let his emotions affect his decisions and rejected the 1,000,000 profound veins from the life and death arena. However, if it were not for that rejection, he would not have gotten involved with the arena of life and death. He would have been able to gain a foothold in the city of divine kings. With this many profound veins, it's definitely impossible for me to find the Lord Pan Palace. It would appear that I'll have to go to the life and death arena to try my luck. I wonder if the life and death arena will still allow me to fight. Yi Fei was rather depressed. After all, he actually took advantage of a certain loophole to obtain the title of King of 100 Battles the last time. If the life and death arena had long known that he had the combat strength to assault the Earth Carnage Proclamation, that absolutely would not have let him take the stage. However, I won't be fighting this time. I'll let the dragon turtle fight. Yi Fei vaguely remembered that in the deathmatch arena, not only were there battles between humans, there were also battles between vicious beasts, and even the most bloody and cruel battles between humans and beasts. The rewards were very generous. Thinking up to here, Yi Fei unconsciously glanced at the dragon turtle. The dragon turtle seemed to have sensed something and could not help turning ashen. He hurriedly raised his turtle claws and calculated for a while. he discovered that right now was neither the new year nor a festival. The dragon turtle immediately heaved a sigh of relief, and continued to close his eyes comfortably, allowing Xiao Chao to pat him here and there. While Yi Fei walked out of the Lord Pan Palace, and came to the deathmatch arena anew. This place was still so lively. Virtually martial artists with some strength in the city of divine kings would all come here to hone their martial techniques and divine abilities. Seeing Yi Fei appear, Mad Dog and the rest acted as if they were facing a great enemy and hurriedly reminded, "Human sovereign, people above the earth carnage proclamation can't take the stage here." After all, martial artists on the earth carnage proclamation had combat strength that could not be measured by their cultivation realm. Challenging those of a higher cultivation realm was even more common. For example, there was a certain freak in front of them who possessed the Ghost Emperor Cauldron and was not even afraid of a half-step divine lord. If he were to go on stage and achieve 100 consecutive victories, then the deathmatch arena would not suffer any losses. Yi Fei was also very depressed when he heard this. He knew that in this place there was no chance for him to take the stage. Helpless, he could only take out the dragon turtle and say, "Don't worry, I won't take the stage. I'll let the dragon turtle take the stage." Roar! The dragon turtle was used to being lazy and gluttonous. When it suddenly heard that it was going to fight, the dragon turtle's face immediately turned as black as charcoal. Yi Fei immediately threw out a casual sentence, "One victory, one extra meal." Roar! The dragon turtle roared angrily, its fighting spirit soaring. Without another word, it took the initiative to rush to the beast fighting area. It made Mad Dog and the rest secretly break out in a cold sweat. "Yi Fei, this black turtle of yours is fat and round. It's only at the sovereign realm. If it takes the stage, it might be swallowed by the other vicious beasts." Mad Dog had to remind Yi Fei. After all, in the deathmatch arena, fighting humans was different from fighting beasts. Fighting humans was a battle of consciousness, but fighting beasts was a real battle. The vicious beasts had a high chance of dying in battle. However, because the beast fighting was bloody and exciting, it also attracted a large number of warriors to participate in the beast fighting. Take the dragon turtle for example. It could only bounce around when it walked. Not only was Mad Dog worried, but even the owners of the other vicious beasts were secretly worried. Whose black pig was this? It had been fattened up and didn't know how to eat, but was sent here to die. Only Yi Fei was full of confidence in the dragon turtle. He didn't even bother to watch the dragon turtle fight. After registering the dragon turtle and winning by suppressing it, he went straight to Xuetu's area. After all, this was Lord Pan's palace. If it wasn't for Xuetu's words, who knew how many families and forces in the city of divine monarchs would have coveted the Ghost Emperor Cauldron? Even though Xuetu had helped him, it was because of Yanbing. Yi Fei still wanted to thank him in person. Knowing the relationship between Yi Fei and Yanbing, the staff of the deathmatch arena didn't stop him. On the contrary, they very politely invited Yi Fei to a magnificent courtyard. In the courtyard, Xuetu wore an iron mask and was leisurely fishing in the pond. It wasn't an ordinary fish, but a very vicious poisonous fish. When it jumped out of the water, it spat out poisonous arrows. It was very vicious. However, Xuetu seemed to ignore it. He swung his fishing rod and hooked the poisonous fish into the air. At this moment, a one-eyed nimble black cat silently came out and snatched the poisonous fish away. Xiao Chao also looked at the black cat in surprise. Yi Fei was even more surprised. "A Tao Lord Black Cat? Is this Senior's pet?" Xuetu didn't answer. He just silently stroked the black cat's head. The black cat also used its head to gently rub the back of Xuetu's hand. Then, the black cat glanced coldly at Yi Fei. With a whoosh, the black cat disappeared. Yi Fei wasn't surprised. He knew that the black cat and Xuetu must have a very deep bond. Xuetu didn't say, so he didn't ask. He just solemnly bowed to Xuetu and said, "Senior Xuetu, Thank you very much for what you did last time. I will remember it in my heart. If you have any errands, please tell me. Shwetu said with a faint smile, How do you know that I have errands for you? Yi Fei's face darkened. He was just being polite. In the end, Shwetu really had errands for him. However, considering the help that Shwetu had given him, Yi Fei couldn't find any reason to refuse. Chapter 23:55. The past goes with the wind. This carefree attitude made Shwetu nod secretly. He nodded, took back his fishing rod, and brought Yi Fei to a pavilion not far away. Inside the pavilion, a table had been placed there at an unknown time. The missing black cat was sitting on a stool, elegantly drinking tea. When it saw Yi Fei appear, the black cat disappeared without a sound, causing Xiao Qiao to be amazed. Yi Fei felt bitter. This black cat is mysterious and strong. It's much stronger than the lazy dragon turtle. They are both vicious beasts. The difference is too big. By the way, Senior, what did you send me for? Yi Fei felt that Shwetu was very serious today. Shwetu sat down. The serious him actually chuckled. It's not a big deal. Yi Fei, what do you think of Mad Dog? Mad Dog? Yi Fei was a little confused. After thinking carefully, he said, Mad Dog is famous for his torture, but I feel that Mad Dog is different from the other murderers on the torture list. Mad Dog's madness is pure martial arts madness. It's not the kind of madness that comes from torturing people. When he saw Mad Dog, Yi Fei thought of a person. That was the Shang clan's Mad Warrior King. In a way, Mad Dog and the Mad Warrior King were the same kind of people. It was just that the Mad Warrior King fell into madness because his cultivation technique went wrong. As for Mad Dog's madness, Yi Fei hesitated for a while. He could not help but say, Senior Shwetu, I feel that there's something wrong with Mad Dog's bloodline. You really noticed it? Shwetu's eyes flashed with surprise, but it was more of praise. He nodded and said, Yi Fei, do you know Mad Dog's background? He used to be a member of a special family in the Heaven Realm. That family was very old and very powerful, but it had a fatal flaw. That is, there is a certain probability that this clan's bloodline will mutate. This kind of mutation would cause a martial artist to fall into a state of madness, and eventually die from madness. Therefore, any child with a bloodline mutation would be killed in advance. Shwetu sipped his tea, but his eyes were looking at the clouds in the sky. This is Mad Dog's fate. When he was born, his bloodline mutation was discovered. According to the rules of the ancient clan, Mad Dog had to die. So, Mad Dog was thrown into a valley and became Vicious Beast. However, the ancient clan did not expect that in that valley, there was a powerful heavenly hound that had just lost its child. That heavenly hound found Mad Dog in swaddling clothes, but it did not eat him. Instead, it treated him as its own child and raised him. Later, this matter alarmed the ancient clan. That clan actually sent 10 monarchs to encircle the heavenly hound. Just like that, the Mad Dog watched with his own eyes as the heavenly hound that had raised him was killed by his own clansmen. The Mad Dog went completely mad. Under the cover of the heavenly hound, he escaped from the valley and began to wander the heaven realm. Shwetu's expression revealed a trace of reminiscence. I was also lucky enough to witness that battle with my own eyes. I saw with my own eyes that heavenly hound, in order to protect a child of the human race, disregarding its injuries and its own life. It only charged in front of Mad Dog again and again, using its own flesh and blood to protect Mad Dog. Hearing this, Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. Vicious beasts were all intelligent. That heavenly hound was able to go against a monarch god. Its own strength must be incomparably strong. Given the heavenly hound's intelligence, it clearly knew that Mad Dog was not its child. However, that heavenly hound still raised Mad Dog without any complaint. In the end, it even sacrificed its own life to protect Mad Dog. I have to say that this heavenly hound is very noble. Yi Fei was very emotional. Even though it was a beast, it had surpassed many humans. It's not just noble. Do you know what that heavenly hound did in order to save Mad Dog from danger? A cold smile suddenly flashed across Xuetu's face. It actually accepted the ancient tribe's threat and willingly allowed those monarchs to use some cruel and evil method to refine its beast soul into the weapon spirit of Renzu's weapon. Even after its death, those monarchs cruelly skinned its body and made it into a gorgeous cloak that they draped over their bodies. A murderous aura suddenly appeared on Xuetu's body. In the end, after torturing that heavenly hound to death and robbing it of everything it had, those sanctimonious ancient tribe members, guess what they did next? Hearing this, Yi Fei's expression suddenly turned icy as he thought of what the ancient tribe members had done to Heavenly Hound. Could it be that the ancient tribe members actually went back on their word and still wanted to kill Mad Dog? That's right. That's exactly what they did. After torturing that heavenly hound to death, I saw one of the monarchs step on its head and laugh maniacally. He said that this beast was too gullible and that Mad Dog's bloodline was a taboo in their tribe. How could they spare Mad Dog just because of a promise they made to a beast? Xuetu didn't say what happened next, but Yi Fei could guess. After all, the ancient tribe members' actions were completely devoid of conscience. If it were him, he would have acted decisively and killed all of them. However, there was one thing that Yi Fei didn't understand. Senior killed those monarchs? And saved Mad Dog? Senior, what does telling me about Mad Dog's background have to do with what you want me to do? Senior, are you asking me to avenge Mad Dog? Yi Fei's expression was gloomy. Sympathizing with Mad Dog was one thing, but going against the powerful ancient tribe was another. He had already offended the palace of the Divine King, the Yin-Yang Palace, and the Storm Hall. If he were to offend an ancient tribe with monarchs everywhere, Yi Fei suddenly wondered if he would live to see the next day. Hearing this, Xuetu couldn't help but laugh out loud. Avenge? Unless you have the complete Ghost Emperor Cauldron, the ancient tribe members can blow you to death with a single breath. Besides, Mad Dog's vengeance can be avenged by Mad Dog himself. This is also Mad Dog's wish. However, in order to fulfill this wish, Mad Dog still has to complete one more important task. Solve the hidden bloodline problem. Yi Fei vaguely understood what Xuetu wanted him to do. Xuetu didn't hide anything and said in a low voice, "That's right. Mad Dog's bloodline mutation is very troublesome. That bloodline will make Mad Dog even crazier as his cultivation level increases. In the end, he will completely lose control and become a madman who only knows how to kill. If that happens, I can only bear the pain and kill Mad Dog." Yi Fei was secretly shocked. Is there no way to solve Mad Dog's problem? Of course there is. I've visited many human ancestors of the Death Battle Palace, and I've also looked up countless information on bloodline mutations. In the end, I discovered in the ruins of an ancient sovereign that the best way to deal with bloodline mutations is to find a bloodline that's even stronger than a mutated bloodline, and then suppress and refine the Mad Dog bloodline. Xuetu's eyes suddenly stared at Yi Fei. Therefore, I want Mad Dog to follow you. I hope that you can use your bloodline to help Mad Dog control his mutated bloodline at the right time. Chapter 2356. Ji Feng. Hearing this, Xuetu's gaze turned strange. You don't have to do anything. You just have to raise your bloodline to the 10th grade as soon as possible and force out half of your blood essence. Then, you will be able to help Mad Dog be reborn. Of course, if Mad Dog goes completely out of control before you break through, you will have to kill Mad Dog. This is my order to you. Although it was a bit like asking for repayment, Mad Dog was brought up by Xuetu's day. How could he bear to kill him? Therefore, Yi Fei's appearance finally made Xuetu make up his mind. Feeling this determination, Yi Fei's scalp tingled. At the same time, he couldn't help but sympathize with Mad Dog. He knew that Xue Tu wouldn't kill Mad Dog even if there was a 1 in a million chance. Xue Tu's biggest wish was not to kill Mad Dog, but to save Mad Dog. Thinking of this, Yi Fei's expression suddenly became serious. He cupped his hands and said seriously, "Senior, don't worry. I will definitely break through to the 10th grade before Mad Dog." Hearing Yi Fei's promise, Xue Tu's iron face flashed with a touch of relief. Mad Dog's condition is becoming more and more unstable. He is no longer suitable to stay in the gladiator arena. I will let Mad Dog follow you in the future. If you have any problems in the future, you can let Mad Dog help you. If Mad Dog can't solve it, you can also come to me. Except for the war with the palace of the Divine King, I can settle anything in the city of the Divine King for you. Xue Tu's words had a deeper meaning. This was also Yi Fei's advance payment for helping Mad Dog. After all, it was too difficult to solve Mad Dog's bloodline mutation. Only a warrior with a 10th grade bloodline could do it. Such a warrior was rare in the entire Divine Prefecture. Moreover, these martial artists all had incomparably powerful forces protecting them. They simply wouldn't risk harming their own bloodline to help Mad Dog, not to mention that behind Mad Dog stood such a powerful ancient family. Not until Xue Tu met Yi Fei, and not long ago, Pan Wang suddenly visited and seemed to inadvertently reveal that there seemed to be a bloodline stronger than the 9th grade sealed in Yi Fei's body. This finally gave Xue Tu hope. This was also the reason why Xue Tu made such a promise. Yi Fei didn't know that Xue Tu's change in attitude was actually Pan Wang's scheme. However, he was still very happy about Xue Tu's full support. After all, with Xue Tu's full support, he basically didn't have to worry about any Sir Gods snatching his Ghost Emperor cauldron in the future. At the same time, Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. He immediately said embarrassedly, "Senior Xue Tu, I really do have something that I need your help with. If possible, I would like to continue fighting in the gladiator arena." "That's impossible. You want to fight? No way." Xue Tu's expression changed. The last time Yi Fei fought, the gladiator arena almost suffered a loss. If Yi Fei fought again, it would be terrible. Yi Fei's face darkened. What happened to his full support? In the end, he fell out with him on the spot. However, he was too strong. "Senior, you won't stop my dragon turtle from fighting, right?" Yi Fei could only settle for the next best thing. He hoped that the dragon turtle would do well. "Are you talking about that little black turtle that eats like a pig? Alright, if it's that turtle, it can fight as many times as it wants." Xue Tu heaved a sigh of relief. If Yi Fei fought, he would definitely be nervous. However, if it was that black turtle that was as fat as a ball, Xue Tu wouldn't feel any pressure at all. Xue Tu even kindly advised, "Yi Fei, if you lack Xian veins, you can tell me. Why send your black turtle to its death?" After all, in Xue Tu's eyes, not only was the dragon turtle lazy and gluttonous, but it was also at the sovereign realm. If it fought, it would only become food for the other vicious beasts and become a laughing stock. Only Yi Fei said confidently, "Senior, don't worry. I have confidence in Blackie. It can't beat it. It can still run away." Sigh. Xue Tu felt that it was a pity. Since Yi Fei didn't want to listen, he couldn't persuade him anymore. After all, it was just a little sovereign realm turtle. What could it do? Therefore, Xue Tu didn't care about this anymore. He just ordered someone to call Mad Dog in. Soon, Mad Dog rushed in with red eyes like an angry beast. His eyes immediately stared coldly at Yi Fei. This made Yi Fei feel a lot of pressure. Fortunately, he had dealt with the Mad Martial King before. He knew that as long as Mad Dog wasn't provoked, Mad Dog wouldn't flip out. Yi Fei politely cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, Big Brother Mad Dog." "Oh right, Big Brother Mad Dog, what's your real name?" After all, Mad Dog was going to follow him for a long time. It wasn't right to keep calling him Mad Dog. Mad Dog said coldly, I don't have a name. I was born in a dog's house and drank dog milk. Just treat me as a mad dog. Nonsense. From now on, your name is Ji-Fong, and you are no longer Mad Dog in my deathmatch arena. From now on, you will follow Yi Fei, Xue Tu scolded. Arena Master, you don't want me anymore? Mad Dog was shocked. He knelt on the ground and tears of blood flowed out of his eyes. This touched Yi Fei. Xue Tu's eyes also became wet. He waved his hand in the air and forced Mad Dog to stand up. Mad Dog, it's not that I don't want you anymore. I just want you to follow Yi Fei and have him solve the problem of your bloodline. Once your problem is solved, the deathmatch arena will welcome you back at any time. Only then did Mad Dog's agitated emotions calm down. However, when he looked at Yi Fei, his eyes were filled with a strong desire to fight. Since this is the order of the field master, Mad Dog has no choice but to obey. However, if you want me to follow you, you have to defeat me. I don't want to follow a weakling. Big Brother Ji-Fong, are you sure you want to fight me? Yi Fei didn't say anything. He just calmly took out the Ghost Emperor Cauldron again. Seeing that Mad Dog's expression didn't change, Yi Fei immediately formed the Taiji Sword Cauldron again. He took out the Dark Steel Heavy Sword and activated the runes on it. At the same time, the Azure Dragon Wings appeared on his back. Then Yi Fei stepped on the Soul Cauldron and entered the Ghost Gate. He looked at Mad Dog with high fighting spirit. Mad Dog's crazed expression couldn't help but twitch violently. He growled, If you have the guts, don't use the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Let's fight. Boom. Sword light filled the air. Yi Fei walked out of the Ghost Gate. Suddenly, the sword light of death and the light of desolation appeared between heaven and earth. They fused together and formed a special Taiji light. On the spot, the pavilion was torn apart and destroyed. Xue Tu sat on the stool in a daze as he watched his beloved pavilion turn into ruins. The black cat that had disappeared suddenly reappeared. It rubbed against Xue Tu's hand as if comforting him. Mad Dog's crazy fighting spirit instantly collapsed. He said bitterly, You win. I'll follow you from now on. Yi Fei hurriedly waved his hand and ran over to Mad Dog to hold his hand. He said sincerely, Big Brother Ji-Fong, you're too humble. Actually, with your strength, you're only slightly weaker than me. You can completely crush any other Tao Lord except me. Hearing Yi Fei's comforting words and seeing that Yi Fei was only at the mid-stage of the Lord of Heaven realm, Mad Dog snorted and was speechless. Chapter 23:57 Cooperation. In the end, Xue Tu decided that what the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. He allowed Yi Fei to stay there and communicate with Mad Dog. He walked out of the courtyard and suddenly thought of something. He called over a manager and instructed, Has Yi Fei's black tortoise started fighting yet? Tell the people below to pay attention. That black tortoise is so weak. Be careful not to be trampled to death by the other vicious beast. The manager had a strange expression on his face. He shook his head and said, Arena Master, I was just about to report this matter to you. Young Master Ye's tortoise has turned the sky upside down. No one in the Dominator realm is a match for it. Right now, that tortoise has applied to go to the Lord of Heaven's Beast Battle Arena. The manager's words made Xue Tu stunned. That lazy tortoise had actually defeated all the Dominator realm experts and went to the Lord of Heaven's Beast Battle Arena. This scene seemed somewhat familiar. Xue Tu had a vague feeling that something bad was going to happen. Let's go. Follow me to take a look. Xue Tu rushed to the Beast Battle Arena area as fast as he could. At this moment, a battle was about to start. However, there wasn't the usual cheering from the audience. Instead, there was a wave of angry cursing. Kill that black tortoise! Shameless black tortoise, if you have the guts, show yourself. I can just send out any one of the vicious beasts, and they can swallow you whole. Black tortoise, go to hell. You made me lose money. All sorts of curses came one after another. There were even people who threw eggs and rotten vegetables to vent the anger in their hearts. Shwe-Tu hurriedly looked at the bestial battle arena. From afar, he saw a big black ball squatting on the ground. Opposite the black ball was a mighty giant bear. The Lord of Heaven's middle stage Vajra bear. That black tortoise might be in danger this time, Shwe-Tu muttered. The manager behind him said with a sad face, Arena Master, if you think that way, then you're wrong. Look, that black tortoise is shameless again. Roar. In the bestial battle arena, the dragon turtle roared angrily and suddenly rolled at the feet of the diamond bear like a rubber ball. Then, it shrunk its neck and limbs, leaving only a large turtle shell exposed. The owner of the King Kong bear immediately acted as if he was facing a great enemy. He stood outside the arena and shouted, "Don't attack it. We'll just waste time with it. At worst, it'll be a draw." The Lord of Heaven's intermediate Vajra bear doesn't dare to attack a late-stage sovereign dragon turtle? Shwe-Tu was puzzled. Then, a scene that shocked Shwe-Tu appeared. Just as the Vajra bear turned around and planned to ignore the dragon turtle suddenly popped its head out and aimed at the Vajra bear's buttock. The Vajra bear's furious roar resounded throughout the entire bestial battle arena. The huge palms immediately pounced over and aimed at the dragon turtle, punching, kicking, and biting. When the Lord of Heaven realm Vajra bear went berserk, it definitely had the strength to sweep away those of the same realm. Unfortunately, the Vajra bear encountered the dragon turtle. In the face of the Vajra bear's crazy attacks, the dragon turtle only did one thing. It retracted its head and continued to reveal its black tortoise dragon shell, allowing the Vajra bear to hit it however it wanted. Even the sound of the dragon turtle's snoring could be heard from within the turtle shell. This provoked the Vajra bear to go completely berserk. In the end, it simply lifted the dragon turtle up and hammered it with all its strength. Even so, the Vajra bear was still unable to break the dragon turtle's black tortoise dragon shell. Instead, because the dragon turtle was too heavy, it directly exhausted its strength and was pressed to the ground by the dragon turtle, losing its ability to fight. Only then did the dragon turtle carefully poke its head out from within the turtle shell, looking as if it had just woken up. In the spectator stands, there were disappointed and frustrated cries from the spectators everywhere. Shwe-Tu's face also twitched. If this situation continued, not a single one of the vicious beasts of the Lord of Heaven realm would be able to break through the dragon turtle's defense. Letting the dragon turtle fight was purely letting Yi Fei take advantage of the situation. Shwe-Tu decisively ordered, "From now on, this black turtle will be suspended from all competitions." If the dragon turtle was allowed to continue sleeping like this, the spectators in the bestial battle arena would definitely be so angry that they would walk away. Hearing this, the steward behind him had a troubled expression. "Arena Master, didn't you just order that this black turtle can fight as many times as it wants?" When Shwe-Tu heard this, he was completely dumbfounded. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly and instruct the steward, "Pass down the order. From tomorrow onwards, the bestial battle arena will be suspended for a month. Just say that we want to expand the arena." "Oh right, how many Xian veins did Yi Fei bet on this black turtle?" The steward carefully replied, "I heard that young Master Yi bet all his assets on it. He even once wanted to pawn off the Ghost Emperor cauldron, but that cauldron was too valuable, and we didn't dare to accept it." Shwe-Tu's iron face trembled as he looked at the bouncing dragon turtle. He suddenly felt dizzy. All his assets? Qiu Feng is really ruthless. In the best restaurant in the City of Divine Kings, Yang Hao, who had just received the news, was so furious that he smashed his wine jug on the ground. He had just received the news from the Yinyang Palace. Elder Yang's death had infuriated the Yinyang Palace. However, the person who had killed him was Shwe-Tu, and the Deathmatch Palace was much more powerful than the Yinyang Palace. The Yinyang Palace could only swallow their anger. However, There were still some elders who doubted Yang Hao's ability. These doubts obviously posed a huge threat to Yang Hao's position in the Yin-Yang Palace. Yang Hao knew that if he didn't eliminate these doubts as soon as possible, he would lose his position as the young master of the Yin-Yang Palace, even if he had a 9th-grade bloodline. "Young master, what should we do? We just received news that Xue Tu somehow got Mad Dog to follow Yi Fei. If Yi Fei defected to the Deathmatch Palace because of this, it would basically be impossible for us to take action against him again," the half-step Divine Lord Elder said worriedly. He was Yang Hao's trusted aide, so he was bound to Yang Hao for good or ill. Upon hearing this, Yang Hao's expression turned sinister as he sneered. "He won't have the chance to join the Deathmatch Palace. Since I can't deal with him alone, we'll add another person." "What do you mean, young master? I don't believe it. Didn't Xue Tu say that he wouldn't care as long as a Divine Lord didn't take action? In that case, we'll use people below the Divine Lord level to assassinate Yi Fei." Under the pressure of the Yin-Yang Palace, Yang Hao finally decided to take the risk and assassinate Yi Fei. The half-step Divine Lord Elder's expression changed when he heard this plan. "Young master, please reconsider. Yi Fei's strength is nothing to worry about, but his Ghost Emperor Cauldron, the Ghost Emperor Cauldron? Without that cauldron, Yi Fei will be like an ant on the ground that I can easily trample to death. Wait a moment, I'm going to see someone." Yang Hao suddenly thought of something and quickly left the restaurant. He went to the God King's palace again and entered an extremely elegant courtyard. "Brother Du, are you here? Yang Hao is here to visit. I'm not free." Du Chong had been in a bad mood recently. He had studied the inheritance scroll more than 100 times, but he still hadn't been able to master it. Naturally, he wasn't in the mood to see Yang Hao. Yang Hao sneered when he heard this. "Du Chong, if you don't have time to see me, why don't you join forces with me to deal with Yi Fei? I heard that you suffered a great loss at the hands of Yi Fei." These words undoubtedly pricked Du Chong's sensitive nerve. Within the courtyard, a figure filled with anger and killing intent immediately rushed out and said sharply, "What did you say? What do you know?" Chapter 23:58. Later stage of the Lord of Heaven. However, in order to deal with Yi Fei and wash away his shame, Yang Hao forcefully suppressed the discomfort in his heart. A smile appeared on his face as he said, "Brother Du, I've already thought of a flawless plan. As long as it succeeds, that Yi Fei will definitely die. As long as it succeeds, that Ghost Emperor Cauldron will belong to you. I only want Yi Fei's head." Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Du Chong's excited expression couldn't help but become greedy. It was this cauldron that destroyed his physical body and forced him to use evil techniques to reconnect Wang Xiu's body. No one knew better than him how powerful the Ghost Emperor Cauldron was. Yang Hao was actually willing to give it to him? "Looks like you have something very important that you need me to do." Du Chong understood that since Yang Hao was willing to give up such a huge benefit, what he needed him to do must be very important. Yang Hao nodded as a sinister look appeared in his eyes. "I won't hide it from Brother Du during this period of time. I've already thought of a way to restrain Yi Fei's Ghost Emperor Cauldron. However, to execute this method, we need someone who can lure Yi Fei out and into our ambush. Moreover, this person must be able to get close to Yi Fei." "What you mean is that as long as someone can get close to Yi Fei, you can make Yi Fei unable to use that Ghost Emperor Cauldron." If there's no Ghost Emperor Cauldron, you and I can work together to kill Yi Fei. This plan isn't bad. Tell me about it in detail." Du Chong clearly had a strong interest in this plan. Yang Hao was also incomparably proud, as he revealed the plan that he had been racking his brains for a month. Yi Fei also didn't know that Du Chong and Yang Hao had already started to collude. Under Xue Tu's almost green gaze, Yi Fei was completely satisfied. He took the nearly 100,000 Xian veins that he had won from betting on the dragon turtle and left the deathmatch arena. In addition, the dragon turtle had won. In just one day, Yi Fei had obtained 100,000 Xian veins. If this situation were to happen a few more times, it wouldn't be impossible for me to gather 1,000,000 profound veins. Yi Fei thought happily. Mad Dog, who was following behind, had a strange expression on his face. He had just received a new order from Xuetu, which was to keep an eye on Yi Fei. If Yi Fei tried to take advantage of the situation in the arena again, he was to inform Xuetu so that he could immediately use the excuse of expanding the arena to forcefully stop the battles in the animal arena. Clearly, Yi Fei and the dragon turtle had become the most unpopular people in the deathmatch arena. Mad Dog hesitated, wondering if he should warn him. However, when he saw the dragon turtle, who was carrying a small wooden tablet and constantly asking for rewards from Yi Fei, Mad Dog sighed helplessly and decided to keep his mouth shut. After the dragon turtle expressed for the third time that it was very hungry and tired from fighting too many times today, Yi Fei finally endured the pain and generously handed over a large amount of magnetite to Mad Dog. Then, he asked Mad Dog to take the dragon turtle out for a stroll. As for himself, he couldn't wait to return to the Lord Pan Palace and enter seclusion again. He already knew that he had comprehended the complete golden body of despair. The golden body of despair was different from ordinary martial arts and divine abilities. It was a special martial art that fused cultivation techniques and divine abilities together. One had to reach the corresponding realm to cultivate it. If Yi Fei wanted to cultivate the golden body of despair of the Tao Lord realm, he had to break through to the Tao Lord realm first. At this moment, Yi Fei locked himself in his room and used the 100,000 Xian veins he had obtained from taking advantage of others to try to break through to the next realm, the late stage of the Lord of Heaven. To break through to this realm, he had to comprehend a third type of law that belonged to him. Before this, when I broke through to the early stage of the Lord of Heaven, I comprehended the law of battle magic. When I broke through to the mid-stage of the Lord of Heaven, I comprehended the law of Earth's core. Then, when I break through to the late stage of the Lord of Heaven, what law should I comprehend? Yes, why don't I use the 9 cauldron heaven suppressing art to comprehend the sword cauldron law? The 9 cauldron heaven suppressing art was a pure divine ability and not a cultivation technique for breaking through to the next realm. Therefore, Yi Fei could successfully cultivate it across realms. At the same time, the successful condensation of the sword cauldron also gave Yi Fei a deeper understanding of the sword Tao. Now, he wanted to turn this understanding into his third type of law, the third level law, and break through to the next realm. Boom! Yi Fei took out a large number of Xian veins. As he cultivated, these Xian veins seemed to turn into rivers that surged into his body. Squeak! In the beast mark space, Xiao Chao stretched her back comfortably and diverted a portion of the Xian veins around Yi Fei into her body. After eating her fill, Xiao Chao began to sleep. In her sleep, Xiao Chao's body seemed to slowly grow a little. Yi Fei was immersed in cultivation and did not notice. As the Lord of Heaven's cultivation technique circulated, Yi Fei's consciousness once again entered the world of laws. In this world, his consciousness was infinitely enlarged, and he began to search for the third-level law that was suitable for him. However, the third-level law in the form of the sword cauldron was too rare. Even Yi Fei himself was not sure if such a law existed in this world. Just as he was about to give up, suddenly, a strong oppressive force came from afar. It was a strange cauldron formed by the light of countless laws. It emitted a faint sword light. It's the sword cauldron. This world really does have the sword cauldron law. Yi Fei's soul was excited. Without hesitation, he controlled his soul and fused it with the light of the laws. Boom! Not long after, the powerful aura of the third-level law spread out from Yi Fei's body. This aura was the aura of the sword cauldron. At the same time that the sword cauldron law condensed, Yi Fei's cultivation realm also advanced from the Lord of Heaven's mid-stage to the Lord of Heaven's late stage. If he took another step forward and perfected the Lord of Heaven's cultivation realm, he would become a half-step Tao Lord. It was also when Yi Fei was cultivating. In the God King's palace, Ziyue walked out of Zhao Yu's palace nervously. Outside, Du Chong stood there in his white robes, looking extraordinarily handsome. Ziyue, I'm sorry to make you do such a thing. Du Chong held a letter in his hand that Ziyue had brought out from Zhao Yu's palace. This made Ziyue very puzzled. Senior brother Du, why did you make me take out Zhao Yu's handwriting? If Zhao Yu hadn't been in seclusion to break through to become a Tao Lord, I wouldn't have dared to take it out. Looking at Du Chong's handsome face, Ziyue still felt a trace of worry. If Zhao Yu found out that she had secretly taken away her handwriting, she probably wouldn't be able to set foot in this palace again. Seemingly sensing Ziyue's worry, Du Chong smiled gracefully and said with the bearing of a noble young master, Ziyue, don't worry. I was just entrusted by someone. You don't know, but Yang Hao fell in love with Zhao Yu at first sight. Even if he can't see Zhao Yu in person, I think he should be satisfied to see Zhao Yu's handwriting. Yang Hao? The young master of the Yin-Yang Palace who attacked Yi Fei but was defeated by Yi Fei? Ziyue actually knew about Yi Fei. Du Chong was a little surprised. Where did you hear about Yi Fei? Chapter 2359. Letter from Zhao Yu. Before Zhao Yu came, she was the little princess of the God King's palace. But when Zhao Yu came, she became an ugly duckling. She had no choice but to suck up to Zhao Yu like a maid. How could Ziyue feel good about this? Du Chong was filled with fury and killing intent when he heard that. After Zhao Yu had come to the God King's palace, he had tried to pursue her more than once. He had even tried to matchmake them through Li Moran, but in the end, Zhao Yu remained indifferent. She was not moved at all. Over time, Du Chong thought that Zhao Yu's personality had always been cold. But to his surprise, Zhao Yu actually noticed the small fry in his eyes. Du Chong couldn't stand it any longer. His tone became slightly sharp as he said, "Then you couldn't have really told Zhao Yu about Yi Fei, right?" Ziyue felt that something was amiss, but when she met Du Chong's gentle gaze and handsome appearance, her face turned red again. She quickly lowered her head and said, "How is that possible? That Yi Fei is very fickle. He even tried to pursue me before. How can I let such a filthy person enter Marshal Uncle Zhao's sight?" Ziyue's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. She hadn't forgotten the humiliation that Yi Fei had brought to her in the Supreme Emperor Heaven. If it wasn't for Yi Fei, she would have entered the heavenly pool ancient land. These words caused Du Chong's eyes to flicker as if he had discovered a prey. What? This Yi Fei is actually trying to woo Ziyue? Haha, I have to say that Yi Fei is really lustful. He's courting death. Then, Du Chong couldn't help but think of an even more vicious idea. His gaze towards Ziyue became even more fiery. This caused Ziyue's face to turn even redder and her heart to race. She felt that the current Du Chong was not the same as before. In the past, Du Chong only had eyes for Zhao Yu, not her. He would never stare at her with such a passionate gaze. Could it be that senior brother Du knows that he won't be able to pursue Zhao Yu, so he's starting to pursue me? Ziyue grew even more bashful. Junior sister Ziyue, I have a matter that requires your help. Junior sister, are you willing? Du Chong's handsome face emitted a cold light, but his tone was unprecedentedly gentle. Ziyue, who had her head lowered, didn't see it. She only listened to Du Chong's voice and didn't ask anything. She unconsciously nodded her head. A day later, Ziyue arrived at the Lord Pan Palace with a complicated expression. She did not expect that Du Chong would actually ask her to help deliver a letter to Yi Fei, inviting Yi Fei to the Heavenly Fragrance House for a chat. The reason Du Chong gave was that he wanted to be a peacemaker and resolve the grudge between Yi Fei and his good friend Yang Hao. This made things very difficult for Ziyu. Firstly, she had purposely concealed the fact that Yi Fei had come to the city of divine kings from Zhaoyu. Secondly, she did not think much of Yi Fei, who was an independent cultivator. Moreover, Ziyu was still brooding over the fact that Yi Fei had ignored her in the Heavenly Pool ancient land. However, when she thought of Du Chong's gentle request, Ziyu finally gritted her teeth and stepped into the Lord Pan Palace. Divine King Palace, Ziyu? Bai Yanran was outside the palace, in charge of recruiting new cultivators for the bloodline test. When she saw Ziyu, she couldn't help but be stunned. Yanran, long time no see. Ziyu's expression was a little stiff. She used to have a good relationship with Bai Yanran. However, as they grew up, the gap between them gradually became obvious, especially when Bai Yanran grew prettier. Ziyu was dissatisfied and took the initiative to break off contact. This was also the reason why Ziyu didn't want to come over. However, Bai Yanran was very happy to see Ziyu. Although they hadn't seen each other for a long time, she still treated Ziyu as her best friend. She walked over excitedly and held Ziyu's hand. "Ziyu, are you here to see me?" "I'm here to see Yi Fei." Ziyu was a little embarrassed, but she was afraid that Bai Yanran would misunderstand. She quickly took out a letter and said, "Didn't Marshal Uncle Li promise Yi Fei to let him meet Zhao Yu? Marshal Uncle Zhao has already agreed. By the way, this is a letter from Marshal Uncle Zhao himself, inviting Yi Fei to Heavenly Fragrance House for a chat." When she said this, Ziyu was obviously a little guilty. Bai Yanran's expression was even more strange. "Zhao Yu actually wants to see Yi Fei? Sister, I'll go and kill that demon right now." Bai Shizhong appeared out of nowhere. He was full of jealousy, as if he wanted to kill someone. Many people looked askance at him. Bai Yanran's face immediately turned red. She glared at Bai Shizhong unhappily and said, "Brother, this is none of your business. Yi Fei is in the attic in front. Ziyu, you go there yourself." Bai Yanran asked Ziyu to go to Yi Fei's side courtyard by herself. Bai Shizhong was dumbfounded. Yanran can actually tolerate this kind of thing. That Yi guy is indeed a demon. Damn it, why can't I encounter such a good thing? Bai Shizhong was very unconvinced. Yi Fei was even more depressed. Today, he excitedly brought the dragon turtle to the death arena to continue earning mystic veins. In the end, he was told that the bestial battle arena had to be renovated and could not hold beast battles. And if he couldn't fight beasts, he wouldn't be able to obtain the mystic veins and cultivate the true golden body of despair. This made Yi Fei very unhappy. On the other hand, the dragon turtle heaved a huge sigh of relief. Yesterday, in a single breath, it made the mad dog accompany it for 24 more meals, giving the mad dog a fright. Until now, the dragon turtle was still lying on the ground with its belly facing the sky and burping. When it opened its mouth, it smelled like dragon meat buns. The smell made Yi Fei frown. He was already considering whether to wake up Xiao Chao and drag the dragon turtle in to beat it up again. At this time, Ziyu walked in with a complicated expression and a hint of indifference. "Yi Fei, Marshal Uncle Zhao wants to see you. This is the invitation he gave you." She threw the invitation in her hand over. Yi Fei was stunned. Marshal Uncle Zhao? Could it be Zhao Yu? Although he could not go to the palace of the Divine King to see Zhao Yu, Yi Fei had asked Mad Dog to find out that Zhao Yu was in the palace of the Divine King. His status was very high. However, since Zhao Yu knew about his news, why did he not come personally? Instead, he sent Ziyu to deliver the letter? To be honest, his relationship with Ziyu could not be considered friendly. After the battle at the Heavenly Pool ancient land, they had completely fallen out. Then, Yi Fei opened the invitation and read it carefully. He saw the familiar handwriting. It was indeed Zhao Yu's handwriting. However, Yi Fei could not help but frown slightly when he read the contents. Ziyu, are you sure that Zhao Yu asked you to give this to me? Yi Fei kept his composure as he held the invitation in his hand. Of course. The palace of the Divine King is the overlord of this place. Since Elder Li has agreed to let you see Zhao Yu, he will not go back on his word. Martial Uncle Zhao Yu will be waiting for you at the Heavenly Scent House. He will not wait for you if you are late. It's up to you whether you want to go or not. Ziyu did not answer Yi Fei's question directly. Instead, she used a tough attitude to cover up her guilty conscience. Then, she stopped talking to Yi Fei and turned to leave the Lord Pan's palace. Yi Fei narrowed his eyes and stared at Ziyu's back. In the end, he did not ask her to stay. Chapter 2360. True and False. Yi Fei looked at Bai Shizhong in surprise. Big brother Bai, how did you know that this invitation was a scam? Bai Shizhong's expression was solemn as he said in an unfathomable manner, You don't need to know how I figured it out. Quickly give me the invitation. I'll go to the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion on your behalf. As he spoke, Bai Shizhong snatched the invitation. When he saw the beautiful handwriting on it, Bai Shizhong revealed a sly smile. Yi Fei felt that something was wrong. Bai Yanran walked in with a reddened face. He snatched the invitation back and returned it to Yi Fei. What scam? Big brother, you're just trying to trick Yi Fei into going there yourself to meet Zhao Yu, Bai Yanran said, revealing the truth. Yi Fei was speechless. However, Bai Shizhong's words still made him wary. After all, with his relationship with Zhao Yu could have come directly if he wanted to meet him. However, Zhao Yu didn't do so and only asked Ziyu to send him an invitation. This was clearly the attitude of a stranger. This also made Yi Fei have two suspicions. Either Zhao Yu really had something to do and couldn't meet him, so he could only meet secretly at the Heavenly Fragrance brothel. Or, someone was using Zhao Yu's name to trick him into going to the Heavenly Fragrance brothel. After thinking through these 2 points, how could Yi Fei go to the appointment so easily? However, if he didn't go, he might lose a chance to contact Zhao Yu. Regardless of whether this invitation is real or fake, it's still worth taking the risk. However, I can't go to the Heavenly Fragrance brothel. It's best to find someone to go there in my place. Then, I'll hide in the dark and wait for any changes, Yi Fei thought to himself. Then, he put away the invitation and looked at Mad Dog, who was standing in the distance. Big brother Ji Feng, does your deathmatch arena have any treasures or pills that can make people look like me? Asked Yi Fei. Yes. The Deathmatch Palace has a type of phantom mask that can change one's appearance. However, it has to be your appearance. That kind of mask is very expensive. Renting it once costs 10,000 Xian veins. Mad Dog's words made Yi Fei's face turn green. However, after seeing this strange invitation, Yi Fei gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, 10,000 it is. In any case, his life and death arena had made a huge profit and he still had a lot of Xian veins left. Mad Dog didn't say anything. He just returned to the arena as fast as he could. Yi Fei then looked at Bai Shizhong. Brother Bai, I agree that you will go on my behalf. However, you must go in my appearance. Are you willing? Yi Fei, I was just joking. You didn't take it seriously, did you? Bai Shizhong shook his head helplessly. He felt that Yi Fei was making a mountain out of a molehill. Bai Yanran was a girl after all. She was more meticulous. She keenly realized that Yi Fei wasn't making a mountain out of a molehill. He was really suspicious of something. She couldn't help but ask doubtfully, Yi Fei, are you sure that there's something wrong with this invitation? I'm sure that this handwriting is Zhao Yu's. However, the tone is too polite. This is completely the tone of a stranger. With my relationship with Zhao Yu, she wouldn't use such a tone to invite me. Yi Fei was very certain. Bai Yanran was very surprised. Could it be that you're very familiar with Zhao Yu? Of course. I know more or less everything about Zhao Yu, Yi Fei said very frankly. Hearing this, Bai Shizhong almost choked to death on his own saliva. Why don't you just say that you and Zhao Yu are a couple? You can say that. Yi Fei spoke the truth. However, when he heard this, not only was Bai Shizhong dumbfounded, he was secretly impressed by Yi Fei's thick skin. Even Bai Yanran secretly spat. She felt that Yi Fei also liked to brag like this. Bai Shizhong changed his tone and said in a serious tone, Yi Fei, we're all men. It's okay to have some improper thoughts occasionally. However, it's not good to say it out loud like you did. Do you know that Zhao Yu is the dream goddess of all the young talents in the city of divine monarchs? It's fine if you brag in front of us, but if you dare to say it out loud, I guarantee that you won't live to see the next day. You'll be beaten to death in the gutter. Bai Shizhong's words were very sincere. Yi Fei was also very depressed when he heard this. Why was it that no one believed him when he spoke the truth? Could it be that he was really too honest? Yi Fei didn't bother to explain. He just threw the invitation to Bai Shizhong and said seriously, Brother Bai, you must be careful. If it's really Zhao Yu who invited me, then it's fine. However, if someone deliberately set a trap and you impersonated me, then you might be in danger. Yi Fei's serious expression didn't seem to be fake. Bai Shizhong suddenly felt that the invitation in his hand was burning hot. Yi Fei, I've thought about it. The gap between our realms is too big. Even if I impersonate you, it'll be easy for me to be exposed. Brother Bai, it's fine. You can totally say that I've made a breakthrough recently. Moreover, I'll let Blackie follow you. This way, no one will suspect you. Yi Fei directly pushed the dragon turtle beside him, who had eaten too much, towards Bai Shizhong. Bai Shizhong was extremely regretful. He shouldn't have suggested that he take Yi Fei's place to attend the appointment. However, he had no choice but to say it. Yi Fei also made such a serious request. Bai Shizhong could only suppress his frustration and hope that Yi Fei's speculation was completely wrong. That way, he would be able to deal a heavy blow to Yi Fei's image in Bai Yanran's mind. He wouldn't refuse. Not long after, Mad Dog also came back with a special mask that was as thin as a silkworm's wing. When Bai Shizhong put on this mask, his entire appearance immediately changed. Not only his appearance, but even his aura became exactly the same as Yi Fei's. However, this kind of mask also had a flaw. It couldn't hide one's realm. Bai Shizhong's realm was still that of a Dao Lord. Yi Fei thought about it and gritted his teeth. He gave the clear sky treasure mirror to Bai Shizhong. Only then was Bai Shizhong's realm hidden. In addition, the dragon turtle was following behind. At this moment, Yi Fei and Bai Shizhong stood together. As long as they didn't use martial arts, they would be inseparable. Yi Fei, let's make a deal. If your speculation is right this time, it's fine. But if you're wrong, you're not allowed to harass my sister in the future. Do you hear me? Before Bai Shizhong set off, he didn't forget to warn Yi Fei. Yi Fei was speechless. He just took Mad Dog and asked Bai Yanran to change into men's clothes. The three of them followed from a distance and walked towards the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. I hope my speculation is wrong. Yi Fei sighed in his heart. After all, the handwriting on the invitation was exactly the same as Zhao Yu's. Chapter 2361. Spatial Divine Runes. The Heavenly Fragrance Tavern was filled to the brim. However, none of the guests were drinking. Instead, their gazes flickered as they stared outside the tavern. Ziyu's expression carried a trace of worry as she walked into the tavern. She looked at the two men who had been hiding inside. They were Du Chong and Yang Hao. In order to deal with Yi Fei, Yang Hao had already used his connections with the Yin Yang Palace to book the entire Heavenly Fragrance Tavern. The guests lingering in the tavern were all warriors from the Yin Yang Palace and family Wang. Due to their deep enmity with Yi Fei, Family Wang had also sent out a large number of warriors to participate in this operation under Yang Hao's orders. However, Yang Hao was still a little worried. Even though the Heavenly Fragrance Tavern's preparations were complete, if Ziyu couldn't trick Yi Fei into coming in, their plan wouldn't succeed. Du Chong, are you certain that an invitation will be able to lure Yi Fei in? I'm sure. Although Yi Fei is strong, he has a huge weakness. That is, he has too many improper thoughts. It's fine if he has extravagant hopes for Zhao Yu, but he actually tried to pursue Ziyu. Now that Zhao Yu suddenly sent him an invitation personally, how could Yi Fei have any reason to refuse? Furthermore, in order to trick Yi Fei, I even spent a lot of money to prepare a generous gift for him. Du Chong clapped his hands. Suddenly, a woman in a red dress walked out from inside the Heavenly Fragrance Tavern. The woman was extraordinarily beautiful. She was like a fairy in the flames, a flower in the snow. Yang Hao's breathing immediately became hurried. Zhao Yu? No, you're not Zhao Yu. You're Ziyu. Yang Hao was surprised to see that the woman who walked out wasn't Zhao Yu, but Ziyu. At the same time, Ziyu was wearing a strange mask. It was actually very similar to the phantom mask that Mad Dog had brought back. Ziyu used this mask to transform into Zhao Yu's appearance. This made her feel uncomfortable and anxious. Senior Brother Du, is it really okay for us to do this? If Martial Uncle Zhao Yu finds out that I'm impersonating her, it'll be hard for me to explain myself. Ziyue, you don't have to explain. I promise you that today's matter will not be spread out. As long as you help me, I will be loyal to you from now on. Ziyu, are you willing to help me? Du Chong's tone suddenly became affectionate. Yang Hao felt a chill run down his spine. After observing Du Chong for a while, he vaguely realized that something was missing. However, Ziyu, who was immersed in Du Chong's sudden promise, did not notice Du Chong's absence. On the contrary, she quickly made up her mind. Under Du Chong's request, he put on the mask again and disguised himself as Zhao Yu before walking out of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. Outside the pavilion, a black-clothed figure followed by a bouncing black tortoise kept approaching. Within the Heavenly Fragrance pavilion, Du Chong and Yang Hao's eyes flashed with hatred. Yi Fei really came. Ziyu, it's all up to you now, Du Chong said softly. However, his face was already twisted and ferocious. Ziyu did not notice this. She was completely immersed in Du Chong's promise. Although she felt that it was inappropriate to frame Yi Fei like this, when she thought of how Yi Fei had once ignored her in the Heavenly Lake Ancient Land, how could Ziyu not want to take revenge on Yi Fei? Naturally, a bewitching smile appeared on Ziyu's face. She once again transformed into Zhao Yu's appearance and walked out. Young Master Yi, you're really punctual. Ziyu imitated Zhao Yu's tone and nodded slightly. There was a shocking temptation in her coldness. Clearly, she knew how to release her charm very well. What made Du Chong and Yang Hao ecstatic was that in the face of Ziyu's temptation, Yi Fei almost immediately revealed a lecherous look. He immediately ran over and laughed. Fairy Zhao Yu has an appointment. Even if I have to climb a mountain of blades or dive into a sea of fire, I will still come on time. By the way, Fairy, may I ask what type of Dao companion you like? As he spoke, Du Chong and Yang Hao were even more flabbergasted. Yi Fei actually wanted to take the opportunity to touch Ziyu's hand. His actions were so vulgar that not only Du Chong and Yang Hao were dumbfounded, but even Yi Fei, who was following behind, nearly vomited blood on the spot. Bai Shizhong isn't such a frivolous person. He's clearly using my identity to ruin my reputation. In the beast mark space, Xiao Chao also withdrew his heaven-earth divine eye and began to wave his hand vigorously at Yi Fei. The phantom mask could deceive a cultivator's eyes, but it could not deceive Xiao Chao's divine eye. Xiao Chao quickly saw through Ziyu's identity. He hurriedly reminded Yi Fei. Yi Fei's heart sank. In fact, when he heard that Zhao Yu had not called him by his name, but by the unfamiliar young Master Yi, he vaguely had a bad feeling in his heart. At this moment, Xiao Chao's reminder had undoubtedly completely revealed that this appointment was a scam. As for who would use such a method to deal with him, a figure quickly appeared in Yi Fei's mind. Yang Hao. However, to be able to produce Zhao Yu's handwriting and get Ziyu to send me a letter, Yang Hao alone would not be able to do it. It must be Du Chong. Yi Fei's mind suddenly came to a realization. This trip to the Heavenly Fragrance House was not an invitation from Zhao Yu at all. It was a trap set up by Du Chong and Yang Hao to specifically target him. At the same time that he saw through Ziyu's identity, Xiao Chao also sensed that a large number of Dao Lord experts were hidden in the Heavenly Fragrance House. Bai Shizhong, quickly retreat. This is a trap. Yi Fei's hair stood on end. At this moment, he did not care about exposing his identity. He rushed forward as fast as he could and sent a voice transmission to Bai Shizhong. However, his voice transmission was still a step too late. Just as Bai Shizhong was pretending to be a pig and deliberately touching Ziyu, Bai Shizhong discovered that something unexpected had happened. What surprised Bai Shizhong was that Zhao Yu, who was said to be cold and aloof, wasn't angry. Instead, he lost his balance and fell towards Bai Shizhong. Why is this Zhao Yu different from the rumors? I just don't like Yi Fei, but this Zhao Yu actually took the initiative to stick to me? Bai Shizhong was astonished. Then, he felt a fragrant breeze. Ziyu's body fell on top of his. The moment the two of them collided, Ziyu quickly took out a purple jade talisman and slapped it on Bai Shizhong's body. The entire purple jade talisman instantly erupted with an intense purple light. This light condensed and formed a special divine inscription that was deeply imprinted on Bai Shizhong's chest. This is a spatial divine inscription seal. Who exactly are you? Bai Shizhong shouted. Although his spiritual attachment talent was not as good as Bai Yanran's, it was not to be underestimated. He quickly realized that this divine inscription was an extremely rare spatial divine inscription. It could directly seal space and sever all connections between him and the surrounding space. Yi Fei, don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself. You shouldn't be a nobody and you shouldn't have opposed senior brother Du Chong. Ziyu quickly retreated and took off the illusion mask on her face. Chapter 2362. The Ghost Emperor Cauldron Shattered? Du Chong and Yang Hao were overjoyed to see Ziyu successfully imprint the spatial divine sigil on Yi Fei's body. Their eyes shone with a cruel and ferocious light. That's great! Demon Yi was blinded by lust and fell for Du Chong and Yang Hao's trap. He won't be able to escape this time. Family Wang's martial practitioners were all excited. Wang Yan's death in battle had not only implicated a large number of family Wang's Lord of Heaven and Dao Lords, it had also directly affected family Wang's influence in the city of Divine Monarch. Therefore, family Wang had spared no effort in dispatching martial practitioners to participate in this plot as soon as they had the chance to kill Yi Fei. They couldn't wait any longer and immediately charged out of the Sky Fragrance House. Dao Lords of Yin Yang Palace also charged out. Du Chong and Yang Hao had arrogant looks on their faces as they strode out and shouted, Yi Fei, you didn't expect this day to come, did you? Without the Ghost Emperor Cauldron, you are just an ant in our eyes. We can stomp you to death with a single step. Stomp me to death? Du Chong, Yang Hao, are you sure you have the ability to do so? Yi Fei charged over coldly from afar. There was no need for him to continue hiding after realizing that this was a trap. His appearance also stunned the martial practitioners of family Wang and Yin Yang Palace. Some of them even rubbed their eyes in disbelief. We didn't see wrong. There are actually two Yi Feis here? What's going on? Why are there two demons with the surname Yi? Du Chong and Yang Hao were also stunned by this unexpected outcome. Then, they all looked at Yi Fei, who was sealed by the spatial divine sigil. Yi Fei, you win. I didn't expect this to really be a trap. Bai Shizhong took off his mask and retreated with a bitter smile. Du Chong and Yang Hao widened their eyes again. Ziyu was so angry that her face turned red. She had only managed to gather her courage with great difficulty to plot against Yi Fei. In the end, not only did Yi Fei fail, he fell into Bai Shizhong's arms and was taken advantage of. Bai Shizhong, Yanran and I are friends. How dare you collude with Yi Fei and go against us? Ziyu was both embarrassed and angry. Ziyu, you still know that we are friends. How can you betray your friends like this? You've changed. You're no longer the Ziyu I used to know. Bai Yanran walked over, her eyes dim. Facing Bai Yanran, Ziyu's expression also flashed with guilt and shame. But when she thought of Du Chong behind her, and of Du Chong's promise to her, her expression became cold again. People change. However, I changed for senior brother Du, but you changed for an insignificant person like Yi Fei. Bai Yanran, from today onwards we are no longer friends. Ziyu firmly believed that by doing this, she would be able to deepen her position in Du Chong's heart. For this, she didn't hesitate to completely abandon their friendship. Bai Yanran's dim eyes were filled with sorrow. Yi Fei also sighed and said softly, "A friendship that can be abandoned so easily is not worth it. Yang Hao, Du Chong, it's time for us to settle our grudges." Yi Fei didn't say anything. He just quickly took out the Ghost Emperor cauldron. When they saw this, Du Chong and many other family Wang's martial artists changed their expressions. Yang Hao's eyes turned ferocious at this moment. He suddenly laughed out loud and said, "Yi Fei, your and Bai Shizhong's acting is indeed realistic. Unfortunately, you can avoid Du Chong's sneak attack, but you can't avoid the open attack of the Yin-Yang Palace. What are you waiting for? Let's attack together and kill this demon and destroy that cauldron." Boom. Following Yang Hao's order, the dozen or so Dao Lords of the Yin-Yang Palace sneered and revealed their trump cards. Each of them had a spiritual enhancement weapon in their hand. They were all Tier 5 spiritual enhancement weapons that could unleash a Divine Lord attack. When they realized that Du Chong's sneak attack had been dodged by Yi Fei, these Dao Lords immediately activated their Dao Lord origins and lit up all the divine inscriptions on their spiritual enhancement weapons. Bai Shizhong's expression turned extremely solemn as he hurriedly shouted, "Oh no, we have to retreat. All of you retreat. Today, I must kill Yang Hao and Du Chong." Yi Fei's anger erupted like a volcano. "They can deal with me, but they shouldn't have used Zhao Yu to plot against me. Since they did it, they must pay the price in blood. Kill!" Yi Fei roared. The moment the Dao Lords of the Yin-Yang Palace launched their Divine Lord attacks, he stepped on the Ghost Emperor cauldron and used the Azure Dragon wings. His target wasn't the Dao Lords, but Yang Hao and Du Chong. "You're courting death." Yang Hao and Du Chong were both enraged. They didn't attack. Instead, they quickly retreated. The Dao Lords of the Yin-Yang Palace sneered and released their spiritual enhancement weapons. Then, countless beams of Divine Lord light shattered the surrounding void and even shattered the Sky Fragrance Inn, the #1 inn in the city of Divine Monarch. Even the entire street was turned into ruins by the dozen beams of Divine Lord light. Bai Shizhong's expression changed. Even if he was ranked on the Earth Carnage roll, he couldn't withstand such a terrifying Divine Lord attack. Yi Fei naturally couldn't withstand it. However, Yi Fei didn't retreat. Instead, he continued to charge forward and kill the Dao Lords who had activated their divine inscriptions. At the same time, the Ghost Emperor cauldron under his feet suddenly emitted a blazing light. It was like a ghastly mouth that swallowed him into the cauldron. The entire Ghost Emperor cauldron started to tremble violently. Countless cracks appeared on it from the impact of the Divine Lord light. This was Yang Hao's plan. Du Chong only wanted to plot against Yi Fei. However, Yang Hao had been thinking about how to shatter the Ghost Emperor Cauldron from the start. Therefore, he had endured for nearly a month and spent all his savings to gather these dozen spiritual enhancement weapons. He had unleashed a Divine Lord attack in an attempt to kill Yi Fei. Yi Fei, I don't believe that your Ghost Emperor Cauldron can withstand so many Divine Lord attacks. Kill. Yang Hao suddenly made his move. He executed the sky, overturning Yin Yang seal. The entire void was filled with seal techniques that blasted forward. Divine Monarch Chaos. Du Chong sneered. At this moment, he had transformed into a Divine Monarch again. He condensed a flaming Divine Saber and slashed the void. Just as the Ghost Emperor Cauldron couldn't withstand the Divine Lord Light and shattered, Du Chong's saber was already slashing fiercely at Yi Fei's head. Yimo, not only do I want you dead, but I also want to take over your body. Du Chong's eyes flashed with a shocking cold light. Seeing the Ghost Emperor Cauldron shatter, Family Wang's martial artists were even more agitated. The cauldron has shattered. Yi Fei no longer has anything to rely on. Today will be the day he dies. Kill. The Wang family's martial artists attacked one after another, charging towards Yi Fei. They surrounded Yi Fei from all sides. A cold smile appeared on Yi Fei's face. This scene was very similar to the one in the core world. Back then, he had also been like this. When had he ever been afraid of being surrounded? Chapter 2363. Chaotic Battle. Yi Fei's hand touched his spatial belt. Instantly, a black iron heavy sword that was burning with divine inscriptions appeared in his hand. He slashed out once again. The entire sky was filled with endless sword light. Suddenly, he slashed at the neck of a Tao Lord from the Yin Yang Palace. The Tao Lord wanted to dodge, but Yi Fei was too fast. His figure flashed as he charged into the distance. Behind him was a headless Tao Lord's corpse. Yang Hao's furious roar could be heard. Another Tao Lord of the Yin Yang Palace had died right under his nose. I'll stop him. Du Chong also roared. Suddenly, wolf wings sprouted from his body, giving him incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, he caught up to Yi Fei. His flaming saber whistled through the air as he attempted to sever Yi Fei's head. However, Yi Fei's body suddenly erupted with purplish gold light. It was no longer the golden body of laws, but the golden body of despair. After obtaining the complete Tao Lord and Divine Lord level golden body of despair, Yi Fei's Lord of Heaven level golden body of laws had also undergone a transformation. Moreover, Yi Fei had broken through to the late-stage Lord of Heaven level. This allowed the golden body of despair to withstand the attack of a late-stage Tao Lord. On the other hand, Du Chong's cultivation level had decreased after he connected with Wang Xiu's body. He was now only at the mid-stage Lord of Heaven level. Even if Du Chong's natural mystique was powerful and could unleash the combat strength of a Tao Lord at the mid-stage Lord of Heaven level, he could only unleash the combat strength of a mid-stage Tao Lord at most. Therefore, Du Chong's expression turned ugly when he realized that not only was his sure-kill attack unable to break through Yi Fei's golden body, but Yi Fei had also cleverly used the power of the Divine Blade to charge at the two Tao Lords from the Yin Yang Palace at an even faster speed. Kill! The whistling sword light of death brushed past them. The two early-stage Tao Lords from the Yin Yang Palace widened their eyes in shock. The light of the life-killing sword beheaded them. Du Chong was enraged. Yang Hao roared in rage. This time, they had set up a trap to kill Yi Fei. But not only had they failed, they had even allowed Yi Fei to kill 3 Tao Lords. Du Chong, lend me your speed. Let's combine and kill Yi Fei. Yang Hao charged over from afar and suddenly stepped on Du Chong's shoulders. Du Chong was enraged. Yang Hao's so-called fusion was to step on him and use him as a special mount to deal with Yi Fei? Du Chong was about to flip out on the spot, but Yang Hao's cold voice immediately entered his ears. Du Chong, you seem to have become a eunuch? You probably don't want this matter to spread, especially to your junior sister Ziyu. Did it reach your ears? Yang Hao had obviously discovered Du Chang's secret. Du Chang's furious expression immediately changed. It was a kind of humiliation, anger, and madness. Du Chang let out a howl like an injured wolf king. At this moment, his entire body suddenly transformed into a crazy wolf. He brought Yang Hao and instantly approached Yi Fei again. At this moment, Yi Fei had just used the advantage of the speed of the azure dragon wings to kill 2 Dao lords of the Yin Yang Palace in one breath. At this moment, he sensed 2 extremely ferocious auras approaching. Looking back, he saw that Du Chang was actually willing to become a mount and let Yang Hao step on him to kill him. However, Yang Hao's method really caught Yi Fei off guard. Yang Hao's combat strength and Du Chang's speed combined to suddenly erupt with the most terrifying power. Yin-Yang Great Rotation. Yang Hao's expression was solemn. He stepped on Du Chang and formed a yin-yang seal with both hands. The entire void was suddenly controlled by a mysterious power. Heaven and earth were inverted and yin and yang were reversed. Yi Fei's entire body flipped upside down and kept rolling. Even the golden body of despair was squeezed until it exploded. The other Dao lords of the Yin-Yang Palace cheered in ecstasy. They used their divine abilities and attacked Yi Fei again. Roar! Not far away, the angry roar of the dragon turtle could be heard. On the dragon turtle, Bai Shizhong's fighting spirit was boiling. Although he was sealed by the spatial divine runes and couldn't open the spatial belt or even fly, he still had the combat strength of a Dao Lord and his martial divine abilities. Inspired by Du Chang and Yang Hao, Bai Shizhong also stood on the dragon turtle and blocked the Dao Lords of the Yin-Yang Palace. Although I don't like Yi Fei, he's still a member of the Heavenly Palace of Despair. How can I let the Yin-Yang Palace kill him? Bai Shizhong snorted coldly and subconsciously looked into the distance. There, Mad Dog had already gone crazy and was fighting Family Wang's martial artists with his life. Knowing that Mad Dog had the deathmatch arena behind him, Family Wang's martial artists didn't dare to kill him at all. They were all blocked by Mad Dog alone and couldn't get close to Yi Fei. On the ground, Bai Yanran and Ziyu looked at each other from afar. Their gazes were complicated. Ziyu, why are you doing this? What good will it do you to deal with Yi Fei? Bai Yanran couldn't accept that his former good friend had turned out this way. As long as I kill Yi Fei, senior brother Du will fall in love with me and marry me in the future. However, Bai Yanran, you really don't have good taste. There are so many young talents in the city of divine monarchs, and all of them are stronger than Yi Fei. Why did you choose a country bumpkin from Qingzhou? Since they had already fallen out, Ziyu wouldn't hold back. Not only did she mock Bai Yanran, but she also despised Yi Fei. Bai Yanran's dim eyes were filled with a strange light. It wasn't anger, but the coldness of facing a stranger. I'm too naive. Ziyu, if you want to deal with Yi Fei, you'll have to get through me first. A soul cauldron appeared in Bai Yanran's hand. It wasn't the Ghost Emperor cauldron, nor was it the Taiji sword cauldron. It was an innate Shin pattern cauldron that Bai Yanran had formed according to her own condition. Her soul cauldron was the innate Shin pattern that she possessed. When she threw the cauldron, the Shin pattern automatically absorbed the power of heaven and earth and smashed towards Ziyu like a comet. Ziyu sneered. Intense flames appeared on her body and formed countless fireballs that circled around her. She showed no mercy and collided with Bai Yanran's Shin pattern cauldron. The two women began to fight fiercely on the ground. High up in the sky, Yi Fei's face was cold. Just as his body was hanging upside down, he had already activated his natural mystique and released an endless amount of withered sword light. This sword light could cause his opponent's mystique to wither and be unable to continue. The upside-down heaven and earth also returned to normal in an instant. Yang Hao's face was immediately filled with shock. What kind of bloodline do you have? How can you have two natural mystiques? What? Two natural mystiques? Du Chong's face was also filled with shock. Then, intense jealousy and anger filled his mind. Who cares how many mystiques he has? If it weren't for him, how could I, Du Chong, be in this state? I've even been caught and trampled underfoot. This Yemo must die. Roar! Chapter 2364. Killing Yang Hao. However, a beam of sword light suddenly split the sea of fire. The flames disappeared and the entire sky was flooded by a sea of blood. It was the light of the sword of slaughter. Once the sword was out, all life would fall and ghosts would be destroyed. The sea of blood covered the sky and swallowed Du Chong and Yang Hao, who was standing on Du Chong. This scene shocked the Tao lords of the Yin-Yang Palace. They had always thought that Yi Fei was only relying on the Ghost Emperor Cauldron to fight above his level and ignore them. However, after 5 Tao lords died in succession and Du Chong and Yang Hao's mystiques were broken one after another, many people realized that Yi Fei's combat strength was still terrifying even without the Ghost Emperor Cauldron. Yi Fei, congratulations! You've successfully infuriated me. Yang Hao's cold voice suddenly came from the sea of blood. Then, the sea of blood surged and the void exploded. Yang Hao once again stepped on Du Chong and charged out of the sea of blood. At the same time, another beam of terrifying Yin-Yang divine light slashed at Yi Fei. It's actually the Yin-Yang divine light. Rumor has it that only divine lords can fully use this ability. If one isn't a divine lord, several Tao lords would need to work together to use it. Yang Hao can actually use it by himself? Bai Shizhong's expression became extremely serious. Although Yang Hao's Yin-Yang divine light was very blurry, it was still a divine lord mystique. As long as it was used, its power would definitely be stronger than other mystique. Bai Yanran couldn't help but look at Yi Fei with a worried expression. Stop looking. He's dead for sure. He's a lone cultivator with no one to rely on. I really don't understand where he got the courage to offend senior brother Du and the Yin-Yang Palace. Ziyu said sarcastically. In her opinion, Yi Fei and Du Chong were very stupid to go against Yang Hao. However, Ziyu's words couldn't shake Yi Fei's determination to kill Yang Hao. He couldn't tolerate Du Chong and Yang Hao using Zhao Yu to trick him. Even though Yang Hao had already used a divine lord mystique, Yi Fei was still fearless. Not only that, he suddenly took a big step forward. Cauldron, come! Yi Fei shouted coldly. Suddenly, sword light spread out behind him, forming a strange Taiji sword cauldron. On the body of the cauldron, there was a door of 8 trigrams. It was as if 8 blurry worlds were stacked together. All of a sudden, Yi Fei walked into the 8 trigrams door. Another identical Taiji sword cauldron appeared in his hand. The 9 cauldrons heaven-suppressing incantation is divided into 3 volumes, and each volume can create 3 soul cauldrons. Du Chong, didn't you want the Heaven Ghoul tribe's inheritance? I'll give it to you now. Cauldron extermination. Boom. The 2 sword cauldrons were activated by Yi Fei at the same time. One blocked Yang Hao's Yin-Yang divine light, while the other quickly smashed towards Du Chong, who had been reduced to a mount. However, Du Chong didn't feel anything. He even forgot to resist. In his mind, the Heaven Ghoul tribe's inheritance that he couldn't master even after a month of hard work, and the 9 cauldrons heaven-suppressing incantation that Yi Fei had used, surfaced. Suddenly, Du Chong came to a realization. Why was it that with his talent, not only was he unable to master the Heaven Ghoul race's remarkable abilities after painstakingly cultivating for a month, even understanding it was difficult. After all this time, that scroll was actually a fake, and the remarkable abilities inside were also fabricated by Yi Fei. He had been fooled by Yi Fei once again. Roar. The immense rage made Du Chong let out a sound that was even more terrifying than a wolf's. In his rage, He even forgot that Yang Hao was still stepping on his body. Instead, he directly broke free from Yang Hao's suppression and brandished his blazing divine blade to kill Yi Fei. "Come over. Yimo, you'll die a horrible death." Du Chong was so angry that he spat out blood on the spot. He was like an enraged divine king as he brandished the flaming divine saber and slashed at the sword cauldron. However, what shocked Du Chong was that his strongest flaming divine saber couldn't shatter the sword cauldron. Instead, the sword cauldron that was under attack suddenly flashed with sword light and shattered the void. It almost pierced Du Chong's body full of holes. Yi Fei's target wasn't Du Chong. After using the sword cauldron to successfully separate Du Chong from Yang Hao, Yi Fei personally controlled the other sword cauldron to attack Yang Hao. In midair, the black iron heavy sword in his hand slashed out like a comet. The thick sea of blood dissipated. The resplendent sword light suddenly pierced through the sky like a meteor and slashed towards the divine light. Yang Hao was shocked to find that his yin-yang divine light was like ice meeting fire. His mystique instantly withered and dissipated. As for Yi Fei's sword cauldron, it had already passed through the void and was smashing towards him. Yang Hao's expression suddenly turned ferocious. He didn't retreat. Instead, he suddenly ignited his bloodline and formed a layer of special armor to protect himself. Yin-yang divine armor. This is my natural mystique. Yi Fei, you don't have the ability to kill me. Yang Hao was completely covered by the armor. Surging yin-yang qi rushed towards the Taiji sword cauldron like a boiling river. Yi Fei was shocked to find that his sword cauldron actually showed signs of trembling and collapsing under the impact of the yin-yang qi. Will of bloody battle massacre. At the critical moment, Yi Fei suddenly rushed out of the 8 trigrams door. The light of desolation that filled the sky once again turned into the sword light of death. The surging sea of blood gathered into a terrifying sword of bloody sea. Yi Fei raised it and slashed towards the river of yin-yang. At the same time, Yi Fei shouted again, "Cauldron, come!" Boom! On the ground, the shattered pieces of the Ghost Emperor cauldron suddenly reassembled on their own, reforming into a damaged Ghost Emperor cauldron. It suddenly flew into the sky and landed in Yi Fei's hand. This scene was completely out of Yang Hao and Du Chong's expectations. Even Bai Yanran and Bai Shizhong were shocked. Only Yi Fei wasn't surprised. After all, the Ghost Emperor cauldron was the sole cauldron of the ancient emperor. Since it could be repaired, it could naturally be reformed. No one other than the ancient emperor could break it. Thanks to Li Moran, Yi Fei had discovered this secret. Therefore, when facing the Tao Lord of the Yin-Yang Palace, who had used the spiritual attachment weapon to release a divine lord attack, Yi Fei had deliberately broken the Ghost Emperor cauldron. He had also successfully paralyzed Du Chong and Yang Hao so that they could boldly charge forward to attack and kill him. At the same time, Yi Fei also used all his strength to activate the 9 cauldron heaven-suppressing art at the most critical moment. The broken Ghost Emperor cauldron reassembled and smashed forward again. Yang Hao was horrified to see that his river of yin-yang had been broken by the reassembled Ghost Emperor cauldron. Without the support of the yin-yang qi, the light of the yin-yang divine armor on his body quickly dimmed. At this moment, Yi Fei's sword of massacre had already arrived with the sword of death formed from the sea of blood, piercing towards Yang Hao's throat. Du Chong, you idiot! You've been castrated and your brain has turned into a pig! Yang Hao roared in fear. He used all his strength to resist the Ghost Emperor cauldron's attack. However, even though he was the young master of the Yin-Yang Palace and had a 9th-grade bloodline, his cultivation level was still too low. Even a divine lord couldn't destroy the Ghost Emperor cauldron. How could Yang Hao resist it? All he could do was curse and curse crazily before he died. After all, if Du Chong hadn't been provoked by Yi Fei and abandoned him, he wouldn't have encountered Yi Fei alone. Even if they had met, he was confident that he could take Du Chong's place and die for him. The cruel thing was that Du Chong didn't come to save him at all. The Tao Lord of the Yin Yang Palace couldn't save him in time either. In the end, Yang Hao could only watch in despair as a black cauldron emitted a strong light and shattered his body, destroying his Heaven Palace Fate Wheel and Sky Bridge. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.